All right, killed that a little bit right before it ended, but that's okay. I want to get started today. JJ the Savage, I think from time you start to the time we see you, there's a delay. FYI, you're usually mid sentence. All right, I'll try and I'll make sure I account for that. There's probably going to be a little bit of that based upon how YouTube works. All right, so today another down day. I know these are fun. I know these are exciting. I'm down probably like 130,000 today. Good day though, in my opinion, mainly because I was able to buy, and I think I picked up even more than this, more Tesla calls, Clean Spark calls, hood related calls. Now again, I'm buying heavy on calls. I don't do that all the time. I do that when I think they're extremely undervalued and I've got a lot of time to be right about them. The most risky investment I'm betting right now is Clean Spark in July of 2025, where I'm only giving this about 9 months to play out. But I believe those 9 months are going to be crucial and that they will, and that I'll do really well with it. And if it doesn't, I'm diversified enough in my risk between all of the asymmetric bets that I have, that I'm not worried about it. And again, I don't have options in everything. I say this because there was somebody that reached out to me today that had destroyed themselves with short dated calls. I don't think they had watched my video about how wrecked you can get when you're investing, and you're not giving yourself plenty of time for something to play out, and how dangerous options can be, which is why I made the Option 101 video, and why I didn't just tell you how you were going to make a bunch of money in it. I talked about all the risks with it, and I talked about why I do what I do. So I highly encourage you guys to look at that stuff. I don't like seeing people get wrecked. I don't like seeing people lose all their money. This latest example here, the guy I just talked to today, I won't name names by any means. And I told him, hey, I did the same stupid shit in 2008, but this is a bummer, right? Like, this guy had put in a bunch of money, $190,000 in short dated September Mara and Clean Spark calls, with 35 price targets. So the chance of any of these paying out is like non-existent. Even just to get to 35 would be statistically almost impossible, in that short period of time of a couple of weeks. So it's just a bummer, guys. Like, if you're getting into options, do it small. Watch the videos, learn from other people. Remember that you have complete and utter destruction for your risk, right? Unlike a stock where you could wait it out and it could potentially bounce back, you're just fucked if you don't get past these targets. You're absolutely fucked. And that's why you have to allow yourself time. And actually, the number is probably like, I say 90, but it's really probably like 75 to 80%, that expire worthless. But that's a huge number when you look at it the other direction and say there's a 20 to 25% chance I make money on these. If you're going to set yourself up that way, you better sure as fuck have been trying to root for a bottom, like a swing macro bottom, right? Like PayPal being down in the 60s for 3 years, or SoFi being down, in the 6s, 7 range from highs that were over 3 years ago. Stuff like that, where you could have a momentum shift. That's the stuff you're looking for. Like when I made 600K off of Palantir last year, or 250 off of Meta, 250 off of Tesla. Like, these big wins that I had were because I was willing to buy Tesla near $100 because I could see the value, and I gave myself years to be right. Was because I bought Meta when it was down 75%, and at the price it was at a decade earlier during the fucking IPO. And I gave myself time for that to be right. Again, Palantir at 750 didn't seem like a big risk. Now, if you're buying options when they're up, or I should say miners, and buying options for miners when they're up 10 to 15x from where they were a year and a half ago, you're not fucking doing it right. So I just want to reiterate this. Like, don't destroy yourself. Remember the dangers of time. Remember the risk of all or nothing. Please learn from my mistakes and this guy's mistakes, and don't do stupid shit with options. Please to God. Think. think. And if you can't separate your emotion and your gambling addiction, which some people have, I'm not saying this guy did, but some people definitely have that. I know people like that. If you can't separate those things, then get the fuck out and find a different hobby. Find a different fucking hobby. Have somebody else manage your fucking money. Just don't throw away 6 figures of 7 figures of money on wildly speculative bets over short periods of time. Please to God, don't do that shit. All right, we're going to look at markets here now that I got my diatribe out of the way. I do want to roll through. We'll look at the heat index. It's been a painful day for most, with markets pretty red. Actually, NVIDIA, not so much, up 1.5%. The electronic technology sector bouncing. Again, chips kind of bouncing. But other companies, Tesla getting hit, and just a swath of others that are still just kind of lingering, waiting for something to happen. And I agree. Amit posted something earlier that said that everybody's waiting on NVIDIA. I think that's 100% what we're waiting on. We've gotten better news in regard to the potential of certain candidates winning the election, and that being good for democracy and capitalism. I think that's good. It's not a sure thing, so the markets can't completely bet on that. But they're looking good. And then at the same time, we have the Fed getting ready to lower rates. So what we really need to see is strength in NVIDIA. We need to see that this company can perform and that the AI narrative is not dead. And if that happens, which I think it will, I think markets will start to take off. Now, some people have said statistically, September is the worst month for Bitcoin, and I get that, but we've already had the worst months for Bitcoin. Can I just throw that out there? Or I shouldn't say worst month, like worst year, right? Considering we had the ETF, considering all the positive things that happened, we also had, Germany dumping like 50,000 Bitcoin. We had Mt. Gox finally distributing to the people that heard this massive dump was going to destroy Bitcoin from Mt. Gox. That was the narrative in the after 2017, before 2000. It's just been there as like this will kill Bitcoin. That didn't do anything. Then we had the U.S. government selling 10,000. That didn't do anything. We've had a lot of negatives and attacks towards the Bitcoin world, especially if you go back over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, with collapses of exchanges and Luna and Silicon Valley Bank, and again, all the other Silvergate, if anybody knows what that is, the Bitcoin-related bank. Like, there's so many negative things that have happened, and yet the economy around Bitcoin is quite resilient and strong. And I just want to show this in this chart here real quick. So, again, if we pull up Bitcoin, let me actually get the right one, because I want to give you my chart, not just the generic. But if we look at Bitcoin here, what it's done this year is pretty spot on fucking normal. And I know this sucks, because people like myself and other people have said, "Oh, hey, we could go so high so quickly," and that could have happened, right? The probabilities could have made that happen. Maybe global liquidity picked up earlier. Maybe the Fed lowered rates earlier. We could have been right. In another universe, we probably are. But here's the thing that you have to learn about investing if you don't already know this, and with the diatribe I just fucking went off on. Sometimes you're wrong about the timing, okay? Sometimes you're wrong. It's okay, though. It's okay. That's fucking normal. So that happens to people. Timing is the hardest part of investing. It's hard enough just finding good companies and assets to invest in. But if you're trying to time something that's going to happen in a day or two or a week or even a month, you might as well flip a fucking coin, because that's about as good as your odds are. Now, I did want to say something here. So again, if we look over here, this candle on Bitcoin is beautiful, just like last month's was beautiful. If we closed at 60,000, at 58,000, it doesn't really fucking matter. It's still going to look like a candle that wants to push higher, because we can see all these wicks underneath. And I think, actually, that we've probably already seen the bottom, and that tomorrow in earnings, which I will be doing an earnings call with NVIDIA for the first time, and that's going to be something I do routinely, I think it's going to be a positive. And I think that when it's shown to be a positive, that we'll see markets start to pop. I think that's the path forward, guys. Again, if I just take everything off of this and rudimentary level information about Bitcoin cycles, this is bullish as fuck. Why is this bullish as fuck? Because we're parked on the other monthly level of support, and we can't seem to drop underneath of it. Okay, that's a big deal. That's such a big deal that if we go back in a time machine and look throughout Bitcoin's history, well, it's kind of hard to see here, but we had these levels before too on the weekly time frame. Let me see. Yeah, it's probably going to do with the trend line, though. It wasn't right at the previous top. But point being is we've had these times before. We've had these times where you think you're going to break out, especially after the halving, and it doesn't happen right away, and people lose their faith. They lose their faith. Like back over here in March of 2020, if you had faith in Bitcoin and then the price dropped, you thought it was getting ready to go. You thought, hey, man, look at this. We got this downward trend right here. We're above it. This is looking great. Then all of a sudden, a 1 in 100-year pandemic occurs, and the price drops from like 11,000 down to 3,800. Did you have the balls to stay? Did you have the balls to buy more? I fucking did. That's what I did. That was my game plan. And I did this, and I had people calling me up being like, man, I think I'm done. And I had to say, sorry, I get it. I get that this is, this can happen. I get that you can lose faith. But I know the value of Bitcoin under the 200 weekly moving average. So I took every fucking penny I could, and I bought that fucking dip. I bought it all, which is why I went from a negative balance of $46,000 in the latter part of 2019, 2020 to a positive balance of 3.6 million not too long ago. Like a month ago. That was my high. So again, this is one of those things where you either have the conviction or you don't. I can't rent it to you. I can't give it to you. You get it through hard work and experience and understanding. And I highly recommend that people develop as much of that as they possibly can, because I would say with Bitcoin and with markets, I think we're on the precipice of major upside price action. And there's going to be a lot of people that don't make it. There's going to be a lot of people that don't make it. And I'll argue this. It is not a bad thing that Bitcoin just recently tested up against the .5 fib and had some level of rejection before it tests up against it again and breaks higher. So would I have loved to have seen 68,000? Was I even calling for it as early as Monday? Yes. But I can be fucking wrong for a period of time. That's how it works. That's how this game works. But what you want to do is be wrong or right over the long term, and be okay with being wrong over the short term. And that's how you'll end up being a good investor. At least that's how I've done it. So again, I just hope that people don't lose faith. Like, even if we have a boring ass fucking next month and nothing happens right away, you just have to keep your faith, man. You got to understand what you own. And even if you look here at the weekly time frame, if we look at the MACD here, we can see it looks like it wants to curl up higher and break higher. And this is the perfect time to see that, right? To see that divergence towards the upside, both in the RSI over the shorter time frame and within the MACD on the weekly. So this is good stuff that we have right now. But again, not everybody will be able to see it, and that bums me out. All right, S&P. S&P up 0.16% today. This doesn't look like a train wreck. In fact, yesterday we had an all-time high on the Dow Jones Transportation, or the Dow Jones Industrial Index, which is also a great fucking thing. Let's look real quick here. Let's look at a few of these indexes we don't look at as much. Let's also, here's the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Oh, maybe it wasn't that. Oh, no, this is transportation. This isn't DGI. This is DJT. Let me put that in here. So again, you could see that the Dow Jones Industrial Index has just hit an all-time high. Not exactly something that's super recessionary. Now, transportation hasn't done as well. Let's just look here. See if I can get the right one on this. No, I cannot. All right, I don't know why it's not there, but I'll make a copy real quick because I do want to show this. Oh, I do want to look at these other indices. I want you guys to see. So again, the Dow Jones Industrial Index making a new all-time high is not the end of the world in any way. And let me actually, before I pull up this transportation one, I just want to take a look here. So we saw a major rout in the industrial back during the pandemic, right? We went from 29,370 all the way down to 18. Huge drop, 35, 40% almost. Let's see how it did in 2008. And again, it started turning over the same time as we saw major drops in regular markets in 2007, 2008 too. And yet this time we're hitting all-time highs. That is just such an oddity that is hard to explain to doomers that say that the economy is getting ready to roll over right now. Oh my God, if I can hit the right flipping buttons. 1 second here. DJT, Dow Jones Transportation Index. Now we're going to look at this one because this matters too. And transportation has had problems, okay? But even that, outside of this rare peak over here in November of 2021, this is looking good. It's finding support where it needs to find support, and it's starting to go higher. It's actually above all the moving averages. To me, it looks bullish. Again, not exactly stuff that you expect to see if the economy is turning over. And we can look here. Let's see how we did. And let's look at the same chart and see how we did for the transportation. I'm willing to bet it got walloped really hard for transportation. Let's see. We went from 11,348 down to 6,500. So we had almost a 50% drop in the Dow Jones Transportation Index from the pandemic, right? Really bad number. You can see how this thing rolled over hard. 2014 to 16, big drops. Let's look at the 2008 Great Financial Crisis. In May of 2008, boom, massive drop. So if anything, transportation was kind of delayed. It looked like it was popping higher when markets were rolling over. So this is interesting. The Dow Transportation actually had a lot of delayed impact. It didn't really start to roll over until September of 2008, which is about the time that the traditional markets bottomed. Isn't that funny? And then this fucker really rolled over. So just interesting patterns that we can find from the past. Let's look at other indices real quick. Let's look at the NASDAQ. Actually, I'll just use my fancy button over here. Jesse, once you reach your line for 10 referrals, can you post one of ours? Yeah, I can, but last time I did that, nobody fucking helped with them. So I was like, hey, I got 2 people in line. Let's give them our referrals. But the people gave them for me. And then when other people were sitting in there in the referral link, and even when I said, hey, guys, can we do something? Like, they just didn't want to help for those. So I can try, but I don't know how well it'll work. It didn't work last time at all. NASDAQ up 0.33% today. So again, kind of doing all right. Now, one should note, the Russell, I think, is down today, but yesterday it actually outperformed the NASDAQ and the S&P. It was up like 1%. So the Russell's down today, but really it's just kind of a wash if you look at all 3 of these indices over the last few days. And this bounce right here, guys, off the 200 moving average looks so utterly bullish to me. It looks really bullish. This is a beautiful pattern, right? It's almost like it's going to turn into a diamond-shaped pattern where if we do drop, it goes down to like 2150, and then we end up exploding higher. So I don't feel bearish when I look at these indices at all. I'm going to check the dollar. We want to see the dollar weekend, and boy, is it doing that. Down 0.3% today. Again, kind of falling underneath this support band here. Even if we look here, let's see on the daily how accurate this support band is. Pretty accurate on the daily. I mean, these are full body candles right over here, right? So we're at what should be support. We're getting near the 200 weekly moving average. We're like sitting on it right now, and we're still breaking down. Maybe that continues to happen. I mean, it would be a great thing for it to. I personally expect the dollar to bounce, but I would love to see greater weakening. I really would. Now, gold today up 0.29%. Still hovering near all-time highs. Lots of Asia still thinking and betting on gold. And then legacy people or old-ass people in the United States still betting on gold. Up about 31% from where it was 13 years ago. Absolutely shit returns. It basically erodes kind of like the value of the dollar. But Bitcoin does way better than that. Now, what's nice here is we had the 200 daily moving average. It looks like we found resistance before we even hit it. And now oil is starting to back off. Oil prices, I still think they could roll over. Maybe test for a third time over here. Or just trend sideways, just like what I expect the dollar to do. But again, oil prices are so cheap compared to where all the doomers said we were going to be. when we were at $130 a barrel and they were telling us we were going to 200, and we're nowhere fucking near close to that. And we're still down 41% off of those highs. So still sitting good, I would say, on that base cost. And if Trump gets in office, he literally wants to push, like, remove a bunch of regulations that are holding back the production of energy, both oil, nuclear, all kinds of stuff, and create incentives to increase energy production to reduce costs by 50%. I don't know how achievable 50% would be, but it's a noteworthy goal, and I think it would have dramatically positive impacts on the economy. Now, if you look here, the MOVE index is starting to roll over. We're dropping, at least on the 3-day here. Let me see what the weekly time. So again, I don't have all my averages kind of linked up here, but it looks like it bounced a little bit off the 100 moving average, but has seen a pretty big decline since August 20th. So we're bouncing a little bit here, but I think the trend is to roll back over. You can almost see. Yeah, well, I'll draw it out later and show it to you. You can almost see, though, why it wants to roll over from a technical level. The 2-year, I think we're continuing our path to rolling over here, down to 0.71% today. I still think that we slowly make our way towards the 200 weekly moving average, and that we're just kind of grasping barely on here. The inversion, it looks like it's come close to uninverting. I still don't think it's going to uninvert. It all depends on how volatile the bond market is, but I do think it'll calm down if we get those really good earnings tomorrow from NVIDIA. The yen against the dollar continues to gain strength against the yen, so we don't have to worry about the Japanese carry trade continuing to cause problems, at least right now. The Chinese yuan, the dollar continues to gain strength against the yuan, so we don't have to worry about that currency rolling over right now at this time either. So all of it's looking pretty good right now. All right, let's take a look here. Skip the ruble. Put call ratio, probably just going to glance at it. Again, falling down. That's good. It shows that a bunch of people are not trying to hedge, which is what we want to see. We don't want people to start hedging. We want them to become optimistic, and this, I think, is a prelude to that happening. All right, real quickly, I want to look at the economic calendar, and then we will jump into other economic data. Redbook year over year rose slightly. This is retail sales for the top retailers in the nation. It's actually a survey of a sampling of the top 9,000 stores. It's supposed to be accurate, represents 80% of the equivalent official retail sales series collected and published by the U.S. Department of Commerce. So it's saying that we continued to outperform. Previous was 4.9. We got a 5% on retail sales. And so again, retail sales have actually been really strong since July of 2023, a little over a year ago. They've been strengthening where they look like they were going to roll over into negative territory. So this is a good sign so far. The Case-Shiller home price. So we got a couple of things. We got home prices, and we saw 6.5% actual versus consensus of 6 and forecast of 6.4. So home prices are still looking strong, right? They're still increasing at a pretty decent rate. Whereas the end of April, May of 2023, they were going into negative territory, and people thought prices were going to come down. They're not. They're still staying pretty high and increasing at a pretty high yearly rate. 6.5% is a lot of appreciation on a home. Or if you look at the house price index, a separate way of gauging it, it's 5.1%. So it's showing a steeper decline. And in this one, it never showed negative decline, or it never showed negative growth in May of 2023, like we saw in the Case-Shiller. But again, home prices are still elevated and going up. Even in this one here, the actual was 5.1%, previous was 5.9, and the forecast was 5.3. So it did a little worse than expected, but it was still pretty high. And I've been saying this for a while. Home prices will start to come down more as the Fed lowers rates. We'll see more and more of that. So September will be a really good time to start to see the home market open up. Because then once rates start to drop, if we get under 6%, it just starts to free up some people to be able to, A, want to sell their existing homes, and B, start to be willing to, you know what, I'll place a bet. I'll place a bet that rates are going to continue to come down in the future because the economy will slow. And so I can get into like a dream home that's been discounted by 20% because nobody's buying it in this current market conditions. and I can get it now at a low price as the price starts dropping. And I'm going to lock that in because I know I can get a lower rate in the future. So you'll start to see speculation that will come up as long as as jobs don't decline greatly, and I don't think they will. Another thing, consumer confidence. I was posting about this earlier. We'll look at that in a second. Again, actual 103.3. Consensus was 100.7 and 100.5. So we're seeing consumer confidence for current and future expectations still sitting really high, and outperforming expectations, which is great. Now, I did post, let me just go back over here. Oh, wrong one. Let me go over here. I do want to say a few things. And you know what? We'll get to them in a second because they're further down the line. I'll just talk to them real quickly in here. So, Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index. I was just saying, and I'll show you this image here in a second, but we are in negative territory and have really been since about, I don't know, the last 2+ years, 20, 24, 25 months. We've been in almost completely negative growth in the manufacturing index. So, an area that has basically been cut in half over the last, less than a decade, while services have grown to be a much larger part of the economy. So this, if anything, I made an argument where if we look at what happened in 2000, if we looked at the negative range that we held in 2008, if we looked at the negative territory we held during the dot-com bubble, that if anything, we're likely to see an oscillation to the upside where manufacturing starts to improve just because it's so depressed. Now, if we break this down a little bit more, though, one of the interesting things for the Richmond Fed, and again, this is just in the Richmond district, is that services saw a decline, a fairly strong one of 11 points versus a forecast of +4. So this is something we should pay attention to, and let's just read it here. It says the U.S. 5th District of Service Sector actually showed a contraction in the revenues index in August from July in 2024, and the demand index -3 from 1. Meanwhile, the indexes for futures revenues and demand remain solidly in positive territory. Local business conditions index decreased from -9 in July to -13 in August, while future business conditions index increased from 3 to 15. So future business conditions index is actually looking more positive. This is a very smart thing to pay attention to. It says the employment index remained at -4 in August, while firms continued to report wage increases. The availability of skills index rose from -8 to 3, signaling an increase in firms' ability to find workers with the necessary skills. That's good, right? One of the bad things of illegal immigration is it's created a much larger pool of people willing to find jobs at potentially lower pay, since they're illegals, right? But at the same time, it puts pressure on the employment base to be like, hey, wow, I better get back in there. I better start applying myself. I better try and find a good job. And so the people that might have been, unemployed or taking a vacation, they're coming back now to try and find a job, to make sure they could weather the storm, because inflation's been tough on them and there's more competition than they used to have. Because again, it starts at the bottom rung where you have like cheap labor and illegal immigrants filling those roles. But then all of a sudden there's other people that might be higher qualified than the illegal immigrants that are trying to find different roles that they can fit into. And so it just creeps up the ladder of employment. So again, I just think it's very interesting, and I think it's making it to where it's going to be easier for employers to find the people that they need, which maybe slows down wage inflation. Not great for the long-term part of the economy, but it's just some of the things we deal with when we allow untethered illegal immigration into the country. You're going to make it where the bottom 30, 40% don't get paid as much. It's just how it works. So that's we deal with what we have in front of us. Now, also looking at the Dallas Fed, let's see, we looked at the services revenue index. Now, this is interesting. So the services index fell, but again, revenues increased, and it was forecast at 6.1, but we got 8.7. It says the services revenue index for Texas firms, a key measure of state service sector conditions, and this is for the Dallas services sector, compiled by the Dallas Fed, surged to 8.7 from 7.7 in July. Dallas Fed Services Revenue Index in the United States averaged 10.57. See, what I find fascinating here is it seems like jurisdictions like Texas that are encouraging innovation, that are encouraging companies like Tesla to come inside, are seeing a bounce. Are seeing a bounce outside of this one little dip. Even here, though, you're seeing a bounce. You're seeing recovery in the services sector of the Dallas Fed. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I think we'll see more of that in the years ahead. All right, money supply expanded. Who knew? It's going to keep happening. This is United States money supply M2. I don't know what all this factors in, if it's inflation or what, but again, we'll continue to see expansion and we'll continue to see record levels of money supply. I think that's about it. I think that's about it for this part. Let's jump over here into what I have for other U.S. economic data. I'll get caught up in chat in a second. Sorry, I'm trying to get all that balanced. Jesse, let me see. Marty Cohen. Thank you, Jesse, for being generous and sharing your time, knowledge, and no bullshit videos. By the way, I'm really surprised that you all aren't pressing the like. Please give this man the respect he deserves. Thanks, Marty. I appreciate it. Lowe's 94. Jesse, start a Patreon. I'm sure most of us would gladly support you from access to your reign. I appreciate all you do, brother. I might do something like that. I don't know. I just got to make sure that it would provide value and that it would be worth my own time. Again, I'm retired. So I don't know. I want to help people, but then there's also the amount of time that I want to allocate to it and whether or not I think it would be beneficial and then just what I create. Andrea, Jesse sent you a PM on X for a small web app I wrote, plus some ideas to manage requests from the chat. Cool, man. I'll check it out. Albert, hit the like button. Agreed. Thank you very much, sir. All right, let's just roll down the list here. So, again, the U.S. dollar index rolling over. Not as great as what it shows here because they don't have the same time frame that we were looking at, where we can see that there is some support levels coming into it. Right? Like, so we're probably looking at the bigger picture, but I do think that I love to see the dollar weaken. I'm not going to lie. Tom Lee said Nvidia reports after the close on Wednesday. Tomorrow, again, make sure you're here for it. He said market is on edge, but this is ultimately just noise in the larger fractal. The AI key driver for global economy, and only a handful of companies sit at the center. And then he was pushing his service, which I think is a good one. I don't use it, but that's just because we look at a lot of the same stuff, and I don't think I need to. But yeah, Tom Lee's a great guy, and I do agree. I think NVIDIA is going to be important, just like Amit was talking about. Cross-border capital, my buddy Michael Howell, been posting a lot all of a sudden. He said one word, unleashed. It said, what are the liquidity implications for the two presidential campaigns? So he's saying the same thing. Michael Howell doesn't type a lot of words out. I don't know if it's just because he's old school or what. Hey, thanks, Kobe. I appreciate the donation, man. I will get to your comment in just 1 second here. But I don't think cross-border capital, Michael Howell likes to write out a lot because he's older. But he said one word, unleashed. And what he means by that is liquidity. Both campaigns right now are promising tons of spending. And so he's saying that we should see that unleashed afterwards. And there's actually a post I'm going to show in a little bit here in regard to Bitcoin and showing how much better it does after the election. So we'll look at that again as well. But I do agree with him. I think liquidity is getting ready to explode. And markets are forward-looking, so once they start to realize that, they're going to explode. Increase the pace of liquidity injections, e.g. rundown, Treasury General accounts, stop quantitative tightening runoff. So this is Daniel Beza asking Michael Howell. He said, what does the U.S. need to do to bring down the dollar? Isn't it a relative play that also requires the other currency pairs, treasuries, to apply their own policies? And he said no. Well, I mean, he didn't say no, but essentially he said no. He said we need to increase the pace of liquidity injections, which we're starting to see, and we'll see more of that. He said we need to run down the Treasury General account, and we need to stop quantitative tightening. And I think all those things are happening, and we're going to see that more so in September. And the next Fed meeting on the 18th, and also I think in October too, we'll see more talk of that. Kathy Jones posted consumer confidence rose to a 6-month high in August, above expectations. The one-year inflation expectations component of the survey fell to its lowest level since March 2020. So I think it's good that the expectations component of the survey hit its lowest level since March of 2020. But consumer confidence rose to a 6-month high in August. I think that those are positive things that we like to see. Let me get back to Kobe's comment. Hey man, thanks for the content. I'm invested in CleanSpark and patient with it. But what's your take on their management? The plane purchase, report delays, and Bitcoin sales. I think the report delay was like a day, right? So I'll give them a grace on that. I think that their management has done a fine job. I think that the Bitcoin mining business is fucking brutal. And and right now, it is one that is hard to make a profit at all. I think if you're good with your timing, though, and you dilute shares near the bottom to buy Bitcoin and mining equipment, that you're doing a better job than most. And I think when you're selling Bitcoin near the top, not just at any point in time, it's a better approach too. Now, I do think that I should actually just pull this up. Let me do that. Let me do this real quick. We might get down a rabbit hole on this one. We might get a little bit into Sebastian Ski's work here. Let me just refresh my screen and make sure I have the latest PDF from him. And then we'll look at CleanSpark specifically, since you were nice enough to tip here. I don't know what that amount is, but I'll assume it's a decent amount. All right, miner PDF. 1 second here while I pull this up. All right, just 1 second. Boop-a-doo. All right. So we're going to look at something real quick. We're going to segue. Okay? So this is Sebastian Ski's work on Bitcoin miners. It is very detailed. I don't agree with all of his analysis all the time, but I love the effort that he puts forth into all of this, into looking at each miner and letting you know all these just crucial details about them. So let's look here. Let's look at CleanSpark and just glance at some of his work. So what I like is the Bitcoin HODL increasing every month, right? I love that. I wish they would have done it even earlier in this cycle. They've sold nothing in regard to Bitcoin. So to answer that question, we haven't seen a sale of Bitcoin since December of 2023. And I would argue that some of these, the October, November, Decembers, were pretty well timed. If we look at Bitcoin, let's just hop over here. So them selling, and let's just look at their chart. Let's not look at Bitcoin. Let's look at their specific chart. So I would argue that CleanSpark did a pretty good job selling in October, November, and December. So they sold, well, maybe the November and December were better sales, right? So they sold a little bit over here in order to be able to prepare to expand and buy more mining equipment. And I'd say that's okay. Personally, I would have done share dilution. I would always choose share dilution. It's a curse word in the stock world, as it should be. But when it comes to miners, it's like a requirement, and I don't think a lot of people know that. So it might have been a better idea to sell, I'm sorry, buy, dilute the shit out of their stock over here, which they did do some, and then prepare for just massive expansion in mining equipment and buying Bitcoin. And if anything, what I would do, so here's what CleanSpark did do well. Last cycle, they sold near the top, like around the 40s or something, I think, with Bitcoin, and around their stock being in the 30 range. They sold aggressively at the top, their Bitcoin holdings. And then they did start to really work on expansion here near the bottom through share dilution. And I'm okay with that. I actually wouldn't do it that way, though. What I would do is down near the bottom, I would share dilute to buy Bitcoin. And then as Bitcoin pumps, I would look at a plan of expansion. But again, it's as long as you're selling near the tops and then looking at expanding and making sure that you're share diluting going, down near the bottom and then expanding on the way up, I think you're doing pretty good. And I do need to go back here because I want to show something else in this PDF. I'll do that in a second. But the thing I like right now is CleanSpark is like their hash rate is turning them into second tier miner right now. So let's just look here. So what is their... Let's look, BT hash rate. Okay, so it says in here for July they were at 21,252. So let's look at Riot. Let's look at Riot and see where Riot is doing in that same time. So 21,252. So TeraWolf has 48% of that hash rate. Riot Platforms is just a little bit ahead of them. So Riot's in number 2 spot. But this puts CleanSpark in a close number 3 in regard to hash rate. And I like that amount of expansion because if you look here at hash rate, look at the hash rate of CleanSpark, or I'm sorry, of Riot. It was like 10, 11, 12. Then just recently here, it jumped up to 23. Now, what I want to show you with CleanSpark, and one of the reasons I love them so much, even though they have high levels of dilution, and again, I'll make a broader video that'll go over a lot of this stuff. Here's what I like. They just continually increase their hash at what I would argue is a pretty steady level. And if you go back even well before 2023, you'll see that these guys just continued to grow and grow and grow and grow. And I love that. And if you look at their HODL stack, again, they're up to 7,000 Bitcoin now when they only had 1,000 in July. So I love that they haven't sold a bunch and instead have seen that grown a lot. Let me just see if I could find here. And again, Iron sitting at about 44% of the hash rate that we have, and no BTC HODL. So as Bitcoin's price goes up, they don't benefit from that in any way. And again, like you can see here, you can see how the Bitcoin stack for Mara, they actually bought more Bitcoin. They did a convertible shelf offering and bought more Bitcoin from June to July. Now, I don't actually think that was a horrible idea. I don't know that they're the best miner at all. I mean, if you look here, they're at 28 now, and you have CleanSpark and Riot not too far behind them. When they were sitting, if you go back here, I mean, look at this. They're back to levels that they were almost at in April, and they haven't really grown that much since the end of the year in December when they were at 24,642. So I think from a miner perspective, they've actually been pretty mismanaged. The benefit they have, though, is they've got a huge HODL stack that gains value as the price of Bitcoin goes up. So they've been able to make up for a lot of stupidity, I think, with that. I'll try not to dive too far down the rabbit hole right now. Again, I'll make that miner video, and it is coming out this week. I'm probably about a third of the way through it as far as my thoughts on the topic. I'm just going to try and frame it in a really good way that makes it clear on kind of what I'm thinking, and then includes the AI narrative in there too, which I don't believe in too much. But it could be, here's the thing, I could be wrong over the short term. Each cycle, there's like narratives that pop up in shit coins and just in the Bitcoin crypto space. In AI, I mean, when you got Nvidia pumping nonstop, and you got these miners that are diversifying into AI plays, man, maybe that is the play this time. Maybe I'm wrong. It's very possible. Here's the thing, though. All of the shit is going to go up. All the miners are going to go up pretty much. There might be some that fail, but that'll be in the bear market. It won't be now. So again, I think that the importance about nitpicking into all of the miners and finding the perfect one. I don't think that's the play. I think the play is understanding the macro, understanding the fundamentals of Bitcoin, understanding that these are multiples of that, and then if you get lucky enough to get the perfect Bitcoin miner that gives you the highest returns, fucking cool. I did really good last cycle. I was invested in Riot, Mara, and then I bought some CleanSpark. So the last cycle I did really fucking great, right? And I had some massive gains from Riot and Mara, like 100x shit in my options. That I didn't keep all of it. This was the last cycle. But again, they did really, really well. And I would have thought Mara was one of the weakest of those, but they did really good last cycle. So again, there's different narratives, and you can go all the way down into the weeds and then still be wrong when it comes to miners. That's why I diversify. That's why I own 3 of them. And maybe I should have an AI play in there too. Maybe I'll throw one in. I don't know. We'll find out. All right, Banana 3. I like this guy. He said, nice higher low setup for a bull flag just before NVIDIA earnings. Bravo. And it actually looks better today. So again, I would say that we are looking at a positive. I would be surprised. Let's put it this way. I'd be surprised if we're not over 500 in NVIDIA over the next month or two. I'd be surprised if we're not well beyond that. Actually, let me just say in the next 30 days. I think we'll see that. I think we'll see a measured move that'll get us closer to 520 or 530. So I agree with him there. I think he does a good job with technical analysis too. Oh, and here's what I was trying to show too. Again, with the Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index, all I was saying is, hey guys, the amount of time and depth that we've been negative in growth is similar to the bottoms of 3 major stock market routes in the last 30 years. So I would argue that there's the potential that we're coming out of this soon, especially if the global monetary supply is expanding. Okay, so. That's what we're seeing. That's what we've done since 2008. There is a reason we had the biggest drop in history in the manufacturing sector, down over 40 points into the negative territory, and bounced back so fucking strong. It was because we figured out that you just throw money at it. Not a great practice for the long haul, but it is what we are going to use. No matter, I mean, both presidential candidates are guaranteeing that, right? Michael Arrowout. I don't know if I got your last name right, but he says it's very simple. The higher the economic freedom, the lower the poverty. Capitalism makes people wealthier. Socialism makes everyone equally poor. This is just showing what happened as China embraced capitalism from the early 80s on. How much this first figure here is economic freedom scores and how people felt they were doing. And economic freedom is a scale of 1 to 10, and poverty headcount ratio at $1.25 a day, adjusted for inflation and PPP, percent of population. So it's showing how much richer people felt they were in this economy. And then it shows the poverty headcount ratio at $1.25 today and how the amount of people in poverty status plummeted. Now, if you fast forward a little bit closer to today and we had real statistics, since they're hiding 95% of their economic data, we'd probably see that their turn away from capitalism has hurt them greatly. And that this just needs to be a message that I'm going to keep reiterating over and over again. Also, the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, repealed a rental law, and supply increased by 212% and prices fell by 26.6%. So he's been helping his economy, and we're going to see more of this. And again, I'm going to beat this drum, and you guys can pull the receipts. Argentina will benefit greatly from embracing capitalism and pushing away from socialism and eliminating large swaths of government, just in the way that X has benefited by firing 80% of their staff and becoming the greatest, freest social media platform on the planet. All right. Michael also said, some of you asked why I post quite a lot about Germany. And he goes, folks, the industrial production in Germany is higher than the industrial production in France and Italy combined. The self-inflicted demise of the German industry to China will have profound consequences for the entire EU. It's very serious, and I agree with this. Again, when you give up your industrial manufacturing base to China, and allow them to pretty much invade your country with everything that they can produce at lower costs, it hurts you. It's hurt us in the United States, and I would argue it's giving a death blow to Europe. Michael Howell said the number one. He said and again, he's been posted a lot in the last 24 hours. He said number one, let the USD fall. And again, he said the formula for that, right? He said number two, engage in treasury buybacks to reduce the move. Again, the bond volatility index. So in the Treasury, I think we'll be buying back a lot of treasuries in order to be able to control bond prices for longer out in the curve. And all that means is like 10 and 20-year bonds. Nobody wants to lock those, or I should say the federal government doesn't want a lot of people buying federal bonds way out there right now. They also don't want a lot of people selling them, and there's a lot of selling pressure from other countries like China that are having a lot of pressure put on them, and they're selling U.S. Treasuries, A, because they don't want to be under the dominance of the U.S. dollar, and B, they need to fund all of this crazy ass debt that they have that they didn't have in 2008. So you got a bunch of pressure that I talked about in that Jack Mahler video from last week that he just did a great job talking to, where you're trying to make sure that you don't have a carry trade unwinding like the Japanese yen carry trade. You don't want that to unwind from the dollar getting too weak, but at the same time, you don't want bond volatility to increase, and you don't want bond rates at the longer part of the curve, the 10, 20-year stuff, to start going up a lot. So they need to buy those. This is the great thing about the U.S. government, though. They can control all this as the world reserve currency. They can buy back the longer end of the curve, these 10 and 20-year bonds, to keep rates stable so that people don't jump into those, so that people don't jump into them or they don't sell out of them en masse. And then they can also help control the U.S. dollar while making sure that, we don't have a sovereign debt crisis where countries like China just sell it all, or even worse, Japan. And then at the same time, we don't have the carry trade unwind. So it's a delicate balancing rope, but you have to realize the U.S. government has all the levers to do this because they have a perpetual money printer. The only risk is that they print too much, right? And that is not something we're worried about right now. So I just want to reiterate that people like Michael Howell believe in global liquidity increasing for a very logical reason. And this is one of the most brilliant people talking about it. Again, Caleb just talking about all-time highs in the Dow Jones. That doesn't really scream, stock market route, does it? And then Tom Lee said, makes sense to me. Many are off sides right now. Many are cautious. And I think I might have even talked to this one yesterday, but it's very, very true, right? People are worried and they're off sides, and they're trying to figure out what's happening in the markets. They think that it's going to drop. So many. I've talked about this for sure yesterday. So many people talked about how they're bearish, and these bearish posts, like Game of Trades is one person, and a bunch of others, like this one account that only had 6,000 followers, had 2 million views saying that the sky was falling and that we were going to see an economic collapse like 2008. There are a lot of people that are still sitting on the sidelines, and they're getting pissed. Why are they getting pissed? Because of this. They're looking at all of these things that say that the market's going to collapse. Who is this? Investing Made Simple said a big stock market crash, question mark. Do this, says Warren Buffett. 2024 stock market crash just started, says Sasha. He probably doesn't actually say that. I don't know. I haven't watched the video. But again, these are the headline grabbers, and these are what people click on. People are looking for bearishness. And psychology in the stock market tells us that what the people are looking for, they usually do not find. So, and he said, like he said, Michael Howell said, same thing that Tom Lee says, and all the smart people say, bull markets always climb a wall of worry. And there is a wall of worry here. Also, another post yesterday from Michael Howell. No evidence of a recession in 2025. Must differentiate stock market volatility from credit problems that triggered the 2008-2009 Great Financial Crisis. Tensions in commercial real estate, CRE, and private equity, PE, but nothing like GFC. So he's saying we don't have anything like this crazy adjustable rate mortgage stuff that ballooned, and we had an excess supply of housing for, I don't know, a half a decade, if not two. Now we have the opposite problem. We don't have enough housing. We don't have adjustable rate mortgages. People are fixed for very long terms, and we're seeing rates coming down. So it's just not the same shit. I don't know how I can articulate that to people. Also, I said, a great way to improve. Oh, and I forgot, I didn't do a market recap yesterday, so we got a few things to go over. So here we go. A great way to improve household income? Slow down the supply of people able to work. And I go, why does that matter? Because if you have a lot more people that are able to work, like illegal immigration, for a similar slightly lower number of jobs, you'll see pay come down. And so I was talking about how it says U.S. households are struggling. U.S. household income expectations over the next year have dropped to the lowest level in 4 years. Well, that's because of illegal immigration, along with a very high, right? Like we've had some pretty decent numbers since the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, when Trump was president, look at how much household income climbed over the years. Even starting back with before his presidency, again, household income was in the increase, and then it plummeted during the pandemic, and then it went really high again and started to do really well artificially. And now it's plummeting again, and it's plummeting because we allowed tens of millions of illegal immigrants into the country that can draw down the amount of pay, starting at the base, the lowest income cohorts, and then slowly drifting up into higher ones as dislocation dials its way up the ladder. Because again, it affects the lowest end jobs, then the next tier, and people they have to be more competitive, and you start to see people that maybe don't have all the credentials, or maybe we're doing some that are trying to climb the ladder, and so they're pulling from other people above them, but they're willing to do it for lower pay. So you have this problem, and you don't want this to continue, which is why we can't allow illegal immigration untethered for another 4 fucking years. I think this is common sense. It is to me. I don't know if I'm conveying it well enough to others, but it is. Kobayashi letter said, this is my favorite bear. I actually like him because he provides data, even though I disagree with him a lot. Treasury markets have never experienced such large losses. The Bloomberg Treasury Total Return Index is down 11% from its 2020 peak, exceeding every other drawdown recorded over the last 100 years. True. You know how we can fix that? Lower rates. Problem solved. Boom. There you go. All right. That's all we got there. The real ones will remember how I've been mocking bricks. Okay, well, this is older. We're going to skip it. We're moving on. I think that's a lot of what I wanted to talk about. And again, Marty Party talking about global liquidity up to 80.83 trillion. Again, the U.S. is just starting to get near its peaks in global liquidity. But if we look at Japan, if we look at the euro, if we look at China, we're well on our way. And this will start impacting markets. It can't help but do so. So again, there's so many other things, but we'll skip here. I think I'm done with the U.S. economy portion of this talk. I do want to jump over real quick and look at the fear and greed indexes and look at what we're seeing for the Fed watch tool. So we're still in neutral territory on the stock market fear and greed at 53. That's nice. I'm willing to bet crypto is still, it's actually neutral at 48. I really don't like this fear and greed index as much. But hey, it's not super high. It's not super low. It's just somewhere in the middle. Let's see what we're doing for September. For the Fed, and we've got about the same that we've had. There's a two to one odd of one rate cut in September. I think that's all that's going to happen. I think the Fed wants to appear measured, and so I think what they do is they do one rate cut if they can, and if they can do another one, and this will mean that we're slightly more negative towards the neutral rate because the rate of inflation is lower, right? It's lower. It's in the twos now. It's creeping into the twos, upper twos, but twos nonetheless. And yet the Fed is sitting higher than that. So that's what it means. Let me see if there's anything else here real quick. Nope. And I'll actually see. Let me see if I got the Fed fund. I need to find a good chart that has or maybe I just need to make one that's got the Fed fund interest rate versus current rate of inflation. But again, we're sitting at 5.5% for the Fed funds rate, even though we're seeing inflation that's sub 3% right now. So again, we're in constrictive territory. But if the Fed is doing things like buying back equities, buying back treasuries, and then not running off their balance sheet while running the Treasury general account down, that's Janet Yellen, then we could still be doing good for a long time. Let me see. Les Walter said CleanSpark bought 37 call today for July of 2025. I'm heavy in CleanSpark. I think that one's going to play out, man. If it doesn't, don't sue me, bro. Brian, today's selling in BTC and crypto was predictable, irrational, and I think it suggests we're at the end of this long price suppression range bound market shop. I think we are too. And I don't know if it's about price suppression. I hate to use that term. I mean, there's probably some of it there because BlackRock's been trying to buy a shit ton of Bitcoin for a long time. So will they do anything in their power to try and keep its price down? Maybe. And again, all the other things I talked about, Germany selling, the US selling, Mt. Gox releasing tokens, a lot of heavy shits happened this year that I don't know that I would have expected. And again, also some of the policies from Kamala Harris where she doesn't appear to be pro-Bitcoin. I would have just assumed she would have at least said, we're pro-Bitcoin and crypto. We'll do all the other stuff Trump is talking about. But no, none of that. Not even really trying. So, and I think the market's fear of her winning too. Even today, there are polls that show that it's close. I don't think it is, especially with Robert Kennedy endorsing, and then Tulsi Gabbard, and then I think Lisa Stein, another candidate for president, the Democratic Party. Like, they're all folding over and joining Trump. So I think the odds are a lot better for Trump to win. But there's all this fear about illegal immigrants being able to vote. There's a lot of weird shit right now. So I think there's counter forces that are pulling Bitcoin's price down, whereas it could go higher. If those weren't in play, I think we'd already be in breakout territory. So Ryan also said BTC is a coiled spring. I agree. It's like a coiled spring, or it's like a ball that's like an inflatable beach ball that you've got underneath water. You can hold it down there for a while, but it's going to come up. I 100% agree. El Moss Racing, excited for the miner video. Yes, me too. Dr. Gonzo, don't bet against the Ponzi, against the American Ponzi. Honestly, man, it might be a bad bet. It might be a bad bet. It's a Ponzi currently right now. We know that because that's what fiat is. But if we see a president that is serious about lowering or reducing the amount of government, in order to be able to free up markets and reduce regulation. And that's going to bring in people like Elon Musk and Robert F. Kennedy and all these others to help with that process. Balaji, Vivek, just all this stuff. It's going to be sick, man. It's going to be, we could actually, and then again, Bitcoin being at least at, I won't say at the forefront, but at least a part of that, and having a crypto council and having people having a Bitcoin stockpile and maybe even a Bitcoin reserve where we listen to people like Cynthia Loomis and we start acquiring it every month. I think that could actually happen under Trump. And if those kind of things happen, we're going to see a massive takeoff in Bitcoin this next year. We're going to see a massive takeoff. And at the very least, we know all the presidential candidates will be spending money, which will help. But I think it could get really crazy to the upside. Dr. Gonzo, don't bet. Yeah, okay. Manny247, thanks, Jesse. Always great education. Albert says, are you still using Truthflation or inflation rates? I'm not. You can look at truthflation.com. You can look at it. I mean, it's I think it's a good site to look at, but it doesn't also matter right now. Now, what they're showing in here as of late for Truthflation, if it even comes up, let's see here. We'll see if it pops up. But Truthflation, here, let me just try it again. Truthflation is showing the aggregate a lot of the times. That's what they're defaulting to. So they're trying to show you how much things inflated over time. And let me just see here. Let me just click on indexes. I don't know. This site's changed so much. They're trying to become a pay service and make a bunch of money. So I don't even know how to get to the previous numbers of the things that I looked at. Let me see here. Enter dashboard. Here we go. So we can look at this. And again, I looked at it a lot when I thought it mattered. I don't know that it matters as much right now. Yeah, it's barely even moving. Jesus. I just want to enter the dashboard. Yeah, I don't even know. I'll check it later, man. I don't even know how it's working how well it's working anymore. But again, I don't know how good of a resource that is right now. And I don't know that it matters because the inflation rate is really, really low. So we can look at it. Actually, let me dial in here before I go into it. Maybe Truthflation has something on here at least that will let us look at the number, since their site kind of looks like it sucks. So again, they're really pushing. They're showing Argentina's inflation rate over time, the reported versus what it is. UK's. Let's see. Do you have the U.S.? Look at, they're showing 1.47% inflation right now. And could that be right? Sure. But even if 2.9 is right, inflation is hella fucking low, and it doesn't matter. Like we need to print. So that's my take. And I probably still will monitor it just to see if it turns concerningly negative. That might be something that I look at in the future. Before I jump into Bitcoin again, I do want to look at something. I want to jump into Hood. I just want to talk to this real quick, how beautiful this is. Look at this. Just look at how fucking strong these candles are. This is one of the best bounces I would have asked for. I'm so happy about my calls for Hood. I don't know how well they did today. Let's see here. Up 4%. So I'm up 31% at least on the January 16th, 2026. So again, I've given myself about 16 months for these to play out, for it to hit 35. I think that's going to be fucking easy. I don't know. I might sell out a lot of my Hood calls here because I think the levels are going to get so high. I think 30, I'll start dialing out. 30 to 33, I'll start dialing out of my calls. I should be up several 100%, 200 to 300%. You got to remember, I made 500 to 600 off of this already. I've already done this trip once. So if I get another 300%, I might sell maybe even half of my calls in this range. We'll see. I might at least 30% because then I've got all my money out of it and everything else is just gravy. But I do think that Hood is just an amazing play. It's going to be an easy chart to get to $30, $32. And then all-time high, I think an all-time high of $80 by the time these calls expire is not unheard of at all. I don't think that'll even be crazy, which is insane because that's 4x from where we're at. So I'll dial out of these and start buying stock more later, but I just wanted to throw that out. Also, something from Amit from last week or a little over a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago. It said Piper Sandler, buy, raise price target to 23. Deutsche Bank, buy, raise price target to 24. Bank of America, buy, raise price target to $32. JMP Securities, buy, kept price target at $30. Wolf Research, buy, kept price target at 29. Mizuho, buy, raise price target to 21. Citi, hold price. So like almost all of these are upside price action where they're chasing. And from my experience, when you have assets that are as low as this one is for as long as it's been, you'll see this crazy upside. So I think 30 is easy, and I think people start raising their price targets to even higher levels as we reach that. So again, I would love to see. Right now I'm only up 30%, but if these things are up 200 to 300%, will I sell at least half of this and take the profits and put it into stock and other stock related investments? Yes, I will. I will totally do that. That is the game plan. So I wanted to speak to that. I also wanted to speak to SoFi today too. An honorable mention because it's doing great. And I just wanted to point out again, it's no small feat that SoFi closes the day up. And I don't even know what did it close. Let's look at it real quick. SoFi closed up today 1.3%. So even better than what I had shown in this image here. But it's no small feat this week if we close positive. It'll be the first time that we've closed positive on a weekly candle from this downtrend in over almost 3 years, over 1,015 days. So again, I don't own a lot of SoFi, but if the asymmetric bet on the options were good, I would. And I do think that this is a great opportunity that people are missing out on. I want to run through the rest of the stocks here real quick. Just the rest of the tickers real fast. Let me look at Tesla actually first, because I know people are going to want to look at that one. So again, Tesla down today, but I told you yesterday early in the morning that we could go back and test the 200 moving average. I actually still expect it to drop and try and test that before it bounces, and I will be buying as it does. Even if it fell through the 200, I'd still be buying because there's wicked amounts of volume sitting underneath of us now. It's a lot of volume sitting underneath of us. And so you kind of have to look at this and be like, this is a great opportunity to buy, where we can range all the way up to 230 before we really start to hit any kind of resistance. And by the time we hit that, the 230 level, we're looking at trying to get out of a breakout that's been going on since November of 2021. So again, almost 3 years of downtrend that we're looking to break out from. So history tells us that especially with all the positive headwinds that Tesla faces, rates getting lowered, build-outs and energy, new products coming online, the ramp of the Cybertruck, the ramp of the Model 3 Performance, or the new revamped Model 3, the new Juniper, revamping the most popular vehicle in the world, the Tesla Model Y, the best-selling vehicle in the world for a while now. All these things are really, really beneficial to the stock price. And we're seeing record selling too out of China, an economy that's really been brutalized and that's seeing a bounce for Tesla right now. And again, their energy side, we'll show some of that in a second, looks amazing. So I'm very much about buying more Tesla, and we'll talk about Tesla in a second here, but let's just keep going down through the list here. PayPal. Again, PayPal today down 0.62%, but I am not surprised at all. I literally have been telling you guys, last week I was telling you guys, it's not crazy if we hit 73 and take our time and back off. Hell, we could go to 70. We could totally go to 70, 69 over here, and back test successfully this first fib line before going higher. I think that's very possible. Am I buying a lot of PayPal right now? No. Would I buy more PayPal calls if we get into the 68 range? I might. Not Hood. We already did that. Not SoFi. We already did that. Square had a nice bounce today. Up 1.65%. I mean, that looks good. Again, this is one that needs to back test and bounce off of the first fib. I think it's doing it right now, and I think it's going to go higher. I don't own a lot, but I think it's going higher. Palantir closed flat to down on the day. It's a little bit down after hours. That isn't surprising to me. I still expect this thing to trend sideways to down for a while. And I'm just going to draw out this line a little bit. I should almost do a fib-based retracement if my thesis is right. But I do believe, again, that you could grind over here. Maybe we grind on the 1 and try and go higher. It's possible. If all of the market's screaming higher, there is a chance that we can go up another 40% before this thing really starts to shit. But I do think that there's going to be more pressure pointing down for Palantir than there is up. ARCG, again, down 0.82%, but getting a little bouncy in after hours, up 0.26%. I think this is still a great base that we're finding here on the volume profile. If we go back even further here, we do have some resistance up at the 28 range. There's a big peak here. There's going to be another one that comes up at 31. But I think the path is higher. Does it have to happen today? Nope. But if we turn risk on like I think we're going to, people will start screaming into this because the amount of opportunity on something that peaked 1,330 days ago, I think is going to be quite high. I think that's quite high, that opportunity. All right, let me see here. I don't think the miners and all that stuff are kind of the same. Again, we looked at Bitcoin. I'll dial through MicroStrategy real quick. Down 4.69%. Yeah, whatever. Again, this is a multiplier of the underlying, so it can get beat up. It's still a nice looking bounce. It still looks like it has upside pressure. But I do think CleanSpark and some of these others will do better. A lot of people shitting on plays like Bitcoin miners right now. It's just one of those things where that'll happen. Again, things like Mara are only up 465%, whereas they were up almost 10x from their cycle bottom in January of 2023, right? So they were down in January 2023. Actually, I'm sorry, the cycle bottom. When is the cycle bottom? No, that's right. That's right for this one. So it was almost up 10x. So it was up 10x when Bitcoin was up 3x. Or actually, it was up even more than that. So, I mean, it did really, really well. If you look at it, it did really, really well. Now, if we look at some of these others, like CleanSpark, CleanSpark did really, really well. If you look over here, from where it was to where it got to, it's pretty crazy. Again, it's a smaller miner than Mara, so it did better, but it was up 1,350% or 14x. 14x when the underlying asset was up 3. You were getting almost 5x versus the underlying asset. That was a great deal. Does it suck that it dropped for a while? Yeah, totally. It's sitting on the dot fib right now. Is this a good place for it to bounce? I would say so. That or the 200 moving average at 1080. I'm going to be buying more calls into this because I have a lot of faith that they're going to return and do really well in the next couple of quarters. If you don't have that same level of faith and conviction, you should not be taking the same bets that I'm taking. You just shouldn't. But again, if I'm right and this thing can go up 500% even, I make so much money off of that. It's fucking ridiculous. And again, if this thing has dropped just from its recent high here in March, it has dropped right now 53% from that high, and it was down as high as 62%. This is what happens when you have an asymmetric bet to the upside. It can crush you to the down. But I think those days are behind us. Cypher, the same kind of thing, 4.36%. Could it go lower? Yeah, sure. But if we look over here, and this is a stupid trend line. Look at this, stupid trend line. And I need to make sure it's lining up properly, but I think it's a little off. But this is a very old trend line when they were doing other things as a business. But it can be respected from a technical level. But again, I don't think it's crazy whatsoever to think that this thing can hit its previous high, even with dilution of November of 2021 near the 90 level. I think that is going to be pretty easy for something, for I should say Mara. Is this Mara? Oh, I have Mara in here. I thought I was pulling up Cypher. Did I hit the wrong one? Let me see. Oh, I got it mislabeled. Let me do this real quickly here. I'm going to have to fix this. I'm going to do another. Actually, I already have a Cypher, so let me just look and see if I have a Cypher. I'll have to relabel this. There's a Cypher, but it's got the wrong. It's IDCC. I fucked something up here. Let me rename this. Then I'll have to recalculate my button. All right, let me go back over here. So talking about the right stock right now, you can see how it's underneath this first fib line. But I don't think it's crazy for this thing to end up going back up to its previous all-time high in October of 2021, right around there, of 15. I think that's going to be pretty easy. It could even go to the $24 range. I don't think that's fucking crazy. I think this number is probably pretty crazy. Let me see here. Let me see. Where are we at? Is this down near the bottom? Let's just draw this down to here. I think something like this is not nuts. $40. I don't think that's fucking crazy. I know it sounds crazy right now, but I don't think it is. This is just one of those things where this is 1.23 billion dollars. To say that it could go to 10 billion, if the stock or if Bitcoin goes up to 150 between like now and the end of the year, I don't think that's crazy at all. I think 24 is at least a pretty easy bet for something like that. And again, I know it sounds nuts right now, but the way these miners move, you guys might not have experienced it. Maybe you bought the miner over here, right? But when you buy the miner down at 48 cents and then it turns into $7, you have an appreciation for a 15x move that you just can't appreciate if you haven't had that happen. All right, let me see here. Are you still okay? Nope, that's that one. SK, hey Jesse, why is Tesla going down? I don't know. Why does anything happen over a short period of time? I can't answer that. What I can tell you is the market is a weighing machine over long periods of time, and it's a betting machine over short periods of time. And there's some people placing bets that it's going to go down. So, whatever. But I care about the long term, right? I care about all the fundamentals that are going on underneath this company, and I also care about the fact that rates are going down, which should help them because it should make it to where their cars are less expensive. They will have the draw, though, of other car companies having downside pressure. So there's still going to be things weighing against Tesla, but if full self-driving is doing as well as I think it's going to in the next 2 years, along with everything else they're working on, again, a robot, multiple new vehicles, their autonomous fleet going live in different cities around the country here, maybe even by the end of this year. And then the energy sector of the business. There's so many positives going on. All right, Brian Thurm. I'm going off of Marty Party's analysis and Binance influencing the BTC float. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm totally familiar. Today's selling BTC crypto is predictable, irrational, and I think it suggests that we're at the end of this long price suppression. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked at that latest research from Marty Party, so I'd have to take a look to be 100% on it. So I can't speak to something I haven't looked at, but I'll take a look. I do like Marty Party. I actually like him. I love James from Invest Answers, and he's got a couple of other people that appear on his show, and I think they're all brilliant. Tony DeGuyen, hey Jesse, you just have to cut off the aggregate from the URL. Oh, to get it to populate. Cool. Dr. Gonzo, Jesse from any bets on Trump's Treasury Secretary? No, I don't care. No, I don't know. I don't know who it'll be. I don't know who it'll be. We'll see. It needs to be somebody a lot better than Janet Yellen and Elizabeth Warren and Gary Gensler. But I think that's pretty easy. SK, hey Jesse, someone posted on X that CleanSpark bought over 1,000 Bitcoin like Mara. Do you know if this is true? I do not. Does anybody know if they can validate that? Albert, people are shitting on miners only because they're down in price. Everyone talks about being greedy when others are fearful, but barely anyone actually does that. Those who, yeah, exactly. That's exactly right, Albert. So again, all the people that, I should say this, I shouldn't say all, a lot of the people that were super excited about miners are like now shitting on them. And these are influencer type of people that have shifted their view because of the fact that they haven't done well. I think you should look at history and you should look at what you believe is coming in front of you, and that should be your decision maker. Albert, I also just realized SoFi, I went up despite Jim Cramer saying nice things about it. SoFi ranking Jim Cramer. Jim Cramer's wrong. Like, he's probably like 2-1 inverse, right? So like he's more wrong than he's right. But just because he says that something's going to do well doesn't mean it isn't going to. But people will sure as fuck let him know when he's wrong because they hate him. Chris Federal. He's telling the truth, referring to miners' explosion. Yeah, you were here last cycle, weren't you, Chris? You got to benefit from some of that. Again, people run away like cowards, but then they miss out on all the upside. And then they're like, and then they want to get back in. And then they're asking me, people will literally, Cypher will go up to $12 and do that in like a quarter, right? It'll go up to $12 in a fucking quarter. Maybe it'll get up to 15. And then people will be asking me if they should buy. And I'll be like, you should have bought when it was 46 cents. You should have bought when it was at $3.94 for like a fucking year. Should you buy now at $15? No, you shouldn't fucking buy now at $15. And they're going to be like, God, he's no fun. But hey, it is what it is. All right, John. Hey, thank you for the $5. I will look at both of those. Give me 1 second here. Andrew. Hey, Jesse. Do you think that the market reacts if Kamala wins in November? I think the market collapses. I think it would collapse. All of it. Really quickly. Some of it will come back because they'll realize the money printer is going to go burr. But I think you'll see a massive drop. And I think stocks will be incredibly depressed. I think Tesla will take a major hit from it because the Democratic regime has made it very clear that they hate Elon Musk, and his leaning in so hard in regard to this election, in regard to Trump, it will not help him at all. So I think if Kamala wins, Tesla will hurt. Most of the stock market will hurt for a short period of time. I think Bitcoin will bounce the most because people will realize the money printer is going to go burr. But here's the thing, it might suck, right? Like people are like, oh, it doesn't matter. The stock market will still go up because they'll be spending. Well, if the spending isn't good for the economy, and if you're constricting the economy and you're making it to where people don't want to expand, they don't want to put money into capex, capital expenditures, basically to make their business more efficient in the future, then you won't get a good kind of inflation. You'll get a kind of inflation where it's like, thank God I own Bitcoin, but it'll be because you have a cheeseburger at McDonald's costs $30 fucking now, but Bitcoin's at $1 million, so you didn't get fucked. Everybody else did. And so those aren't the kind of gains I'm looking for in Bitcoin. I'm looking for gains while the dollar slowly depreciates, and gains because people realize it's a better monetary system than the one that we have. I'm looking at America still being a leader of democracy and capitalism in the world. Those are the kind of fucking gains I want. I don't want gains because it was insurance and the world is being destroyed. So that's my take on November. Might not be the one people want to hear. Alex Garcia, I believe we're going to make so much money in 8 to 10 months BTC related plays. I agree. And even if Kamala destroys us, our BTC plays might actually give us more money than we had today. So, not a lot more, but more. Albert, U.S. presidential election has probably never been more important to stock market than now. I agree with that. And people want to say, oh, historically, if you just look at the stock market, elections don't matter. We've also never had a presidential candidate that is literally a communist. Okay? So, that's father taught Marxism in college for Stanford for decades. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's problematic, don't you? Anybody with a brain? Do you think 44% capital gains tax is going to be good for the fucking stock market? Anybody? Bueller? Do you think that's going to be good? No. No, it's not. Do you think taxing people with unrealized fucking gains is going to be good? No. Because then you have downward price pressure put from every fucking CEO and C-suite person on every major company in the stock exchange at a time when they've never been valued higher. Do you think that's going to help your fucking stocks voting for Kamala? Do you? Are you retarded? Are you fucking stupid? Sorry. Sorry. I just get really annoyed when people tell me that the election does not matter. But we're talking, and then the only retort I get is, oh, she won't win anyway. She won't get enough power. Well, she wants to do these things, and so we should elect her into power, but we don't have to worry about her doing them because she won't have enough power to do them. That's not the vote I want to fucking put forth. Anyway, my bad. All right, 1 sec here. I want to roll through other stuff real quick. I want to roll through some of the recent things that have happened with Bitcoin and in Tesla. So we'll do that real fast, and then we'll get to stocks since some of you guys have paid so nicely. All right, to get me to review. All right, so real quickly here. Again, don't be fucking retarded. Sorry, that's not a very PC comment. Don't be fucking retarded, though. This is good. Bitcoin is good. Also, I've got to say, it's smart of Trump to get people who support him to buy NFTs and stupid shit and ugly fucking shoes to support his cause. Because he's not promising them anything. He's just saying, hey, here's some stupid shit. Give me some money and help my campaign. And honestly, I mean, kind of cool to get something if you're going to support somebody anyway. And I think this shows, yet again, that Trump understands that this has a future and will be supportive of it. I also posted down here, it says, Whale posted, just in, Bitcoin spot ETFs record 8 consecutive days of inflows. BlackRock adds 224 million. And I put, as cowards sell, people with conviction buy. This is how it is. This is the way. Crypto T, she's great. I haven't posted anything from her in a while, but she said, I like this post. It said the number of Bitcoin users could 30x and it would still be smaller than Facebook. Do you understand? We're talking about the user base, right? It could 30x and it wouldn't even be the size of Facebook. It wouldn't even be close. That's insane. So we got a lot of growth ahead of us with the best monetary asset ever invented in the history of mankind. Quentin said, even a 4x will bring Bitcoin to 250,000 this cycle, and I'm ready for it. So it shows a 10x comparatively in the timeline of where we were previous cycle to where we ended up getting for the halving, and then a 7x, and then right now even a 4, even a 3. A 3x would be a good fucking number. 180,000 would be a great number. I would have 6 to 10x returns between shitcoins and or some of my best returns would be 6 to 10x, and I would totally take that. I mean, that gives me about $10 million to $12, $13 million in just my Bitcoin-related investments, not including my hardware wallet. Okay? So that would be good. I would take that too. Jack Mahlers. I love this man so much. He looks like a baby who can't grow facial hair, but he is one of the most brilliant people that you can listen to when it comes to macroeconomics and why Bitcoin is so great. And there's this 4-minute clip that I want you guys to hear because it's just so wonderful. So here we go.
So I like the global debt to GDP is my favorite metric because what it tells you, so money is our time and energy in an abstracted form, right?
So first off, stop, listen, think. Money is just our time and energy. Come at it with that.
What I mean by that is you guys do this podcast in exchange for money. Someone mows a lawn in exchange for money, fixes a windshield in exchange for money, bags groceries in exchange for money. And so it is our contributions to society, our time, our energy, captured in an abstracted form. For a government to take out debt or borrow, money is about borrowing our time and energy. So I think
borrowing against the future of our time and energy.
Government debt is the closest thing we've ever seen to time travel because you're borrowing the collective populace time and energy from the future.
Isn't that fucked up to think of? But that's what's happening, all this uncontrollable debt. And people talk about this every once in a while, just like, oh, we're stealing from future generations. We really are. We really are. We're fucking my daughter, who's 10 years old, is getting screwed by what we're doing right now in regard to our actions, right? And the next generation will be screwed even more. And the next one will be screwed even more if we don't correct the path forward that we're looking at, if we don't fix the things that we need to fix. So it's very important to realize that the government can just print the money, but it's stealing from future generations.
How do you time travel? Well, we haven't figured that out yet, but how do you get close? Is you borrow human time and energy from the future.
Yep.
And so by looking at global debt, you can see how much time and energy from the human population and its future have been borrowed.
How much we've stolen from future generations.
And then if you look at the growth, which is what that metric tells us, is how is that time and energy they're borrowing being invested in their ability to pay that back. And with global debt to GDP at over 300%, it means they've borrowed a lot of our future and a lot of our time and energy with no way to pay it back. And what everyone's realizing is that loss has to be realized. So there is a loss. Governments have borrowed our time and energy, in my opinion, arguably maliciously so, without permission, and they don't know how to pay it back.
And they've been ineffective with the amount of spending they've done. You can see this from Biden's billions of dollars that went to building a handful of EV charging stations. And now he's looking at doing another 500 something million more dedicated to revamping 9,000 charging stations. It's just like government is horrifically inefficient and corrupt. And so even the money spent doesn't really do much to improve GDP. Now, Jack won't talk about this because I don't think he's really clued in with Tesla and robotics and autonomy and AI. He's not focused on that. He's focused on broken money. But I will make this argument that autonomy, robotics, and AI can create higher levels of GDP and will in the future. Just like Elon said, we'll be able to print GDP in the future with the level of production being created with robotics. And Optimus is easier to build and create. It's a lower risk profile, I should say, to create Optimus, a robot. You don't have to worry about him driving 90 down the interstate and wiping out an entire family. So he just has to walk straight and try and perform some tasks like cleaning dishes or doing laundry or moving some things around in a warehouse. So the risk profile is a lot lower, and they can iterate a lot faster with it than they can with cars and with all the regulation and things that exist in those areas. They're going to be able to move a lot faster with Optimus. So I would argue that we can actually start to offset and create a higher level of GDP than what our debt is. And we might live in a future where we have like a universal basic income type of thing that isn't detrimental to society because we're offsetting any of the inflation with production gains and lowering of cost. So I think there's stuff like this that can happen in conjunction with Bitcoin as a reserve and a lifeline for people to be able to save and preserve wealth, no matter how wealthy they are, from the poorest of us to the richest of us. So I think there can be a couple of things that can happen, and with nuance, these can actually save the United States, and we could still be in the golden era of the United States for hundreds of years. We don't know. Rome didn't fall in a day, right? They fell from expansion and expanding their monetary base too much, and then it ended up collapsing, right? And we could see something like that, but the fourth turning doesn't mean it has to happen in the next year. And I would argue we might be on the precipice of an age of abundance like we've never seen before. But my rules for that being able to happen is Trump has to get elected, and he has to allow these people that are around him to deregulate, to help lower the amount of government spending, and to do really smart things to make the world a better place while we embrace Bitcoin. And if we do those two things, then I think we're headed towards an age of abundance. But let's let him finish his thought since I've interrupted him, and he's got 3 minutes left. 1 sec.
And so I think everyone, including Larry Fink now even, is looking around the room and like, who's realizing that loss? Whose time and energy is going towards paying that back? And Bitcoin is arguably the first exit door we've ever had accessible to us all. It's a casting vote to say,
Yep.
I don't know the answer, but it's not going to be my time and energy. And I think everyone's speculation is currency debasement is the way out for government, is you can steal the time and energy of everyone alive today, everyone holding US dollars, by printing more of them. And you can fill that hole. You can realize that loss by printing, right? And I think Bitcoin is the best expression of currency debasement. So if you want to protect yourself, you buy Bitcoin. If you want a put option on the bond market, you buy Bitcoin. If you want to be long volatility, if you want to be long chaos, if you want to monetize this problem, if you want to monetize and make money and benefit from the issues government has caused, Bitcoin is that. And I think everyone between Larry Fink to President Bukele to Dorsey to Saylor to now potentially Trump, right, That's what I think is happening, is that so I love that global debt to GDP
To you,
metric.
to I, to Danny, to everyone.
Right. It's the first time there's ever been an alternative financial system, an alternative money that we all have access to. Traditionally, you think
that no one can confiscate, that's immutable, which means that it's never been altered. The ledger has never been altered. People have lost their keys. They've done stupid shit where they let people borrow their Bitcoin and then find out that they've taken it and spent it, right? Stupid shit has happened, but there's never been a change on the actual ledger that you have to worry about since this thing's been in production.
think of gold, you think of real estate as ways to capture and store your time and energy. Why? Because gold is a collection of chemicals that's close to what you want out of a money, because government can't print it, right? It's hard to create more of it. It's not perfect, but it's close. Real estate, in theory, the theory behind real estate is you can't print any more land. Does that mean you can't print any more real estate? Unfortunately not. They're going to build a building in Manhattan that's 10,000 stories high, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point about real estate. You can't buy more land, and land value traditionally does go up. But like, I live in the Midwest, there's fucking land everywhere. There's land everywhere. And again, one could argue that the land and the buildings are becoming unaffordable, and they're to a point where they're more speculation than they are the value of the property, and that the prices of the real estate needs to come down to make them affordable for the average person. Well, Bitcoin is a great way for that to come down because it can deflate out of that and go into an asset that is pure and that can be traded anywhere in the world and that can be traded 24/7 a day, and that isn't illiquid and stuck in property in the ground somewhere. That he's right, you can still build more.
But these things are close. And Bitcoin, in my opinion, is the first man-made money. We didn't make gold. We didn't make land. Depends on how religious you are and stuff, but right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
We made Bitcoin from scratch to solve this specific problem. It is the first man-made, human-engineered money to be perfect. And it is the best expression of this problem that everyone has access to. Not everyone has access to Miami beachfront real estate. Not everyone has access to store tons and tons of gold in a vault protected by armed weapons in their basement.
All right, real quick. I want to say something real quick. Silas, you said problem is bad governments are always risk. Bitcoin might be helpful, but a world of bad governments will prevent BTC from being a rescue for many holders. No, that's not true. You want to know why that's not true? Because all the rich and powerful people that run these governments want to save their ass too, which is why Larry Fink and BlackRock are a part of this process, because he realized it's a lifeline. It's a lifeline for the people that invest in his funds, and it's a lifeline for their own wealth preservation, because they know that the money printer has to go burr. They know that we're heavily indebted. And the game theory is great, because if you have one company, or I should say one country that bans Bitcoin, like China or Russia. Remember how these guys were banning Bitcoin? Now they're trying to embrace these markets again. Russia's literally building crypto exchanges and trying to get people to use their CBD and trade crypto in their platform. And China has backed off from their ban greatly. All right? They've still got people trading in Bitcoin. They've got fucking ETFs in Hong Kong. So no, the way the game theory works, whoever doesn't embrace it gets fucked. And then the other countries that do benefit. And that's the great thing about it. The game theory puts them in competition against each other. And that's what's going to save us. That's what's going to make it to where Democrats have no choice. No matter what they do, they'll have to embrace it. So, but again, they can make it difficult. You're right. They can make it difficult for the people in their country to use it as a lifeline, but they also need it. And if they do that, it will make it stronger in other parts of the world. So people have to realize this. If BTC is 95% down for decades, it does not help most. That's not what's going to happen. That's not what's going to happen at all. That's not true. That's just not true. Again, the money printer has to go burr. I can show you M2 money supply and I can show you its expansion. So that money has to go somewhere. And it's going to go to the most effective, best tool. right? And that's not gold because gold isn't easily transportable. It isn't easily divisible. I can't just cut it in half. Okay? It's not like I can leave the fucking country with my gold. The people at the TSA are going to have questions for me. Okay? So, it's not a good method. I can't pick up and move my fucking house to El Salvador. Okay? I can't use that either. And if I try and sell my stocks, the government's going to want their taxes and they're going to want their money too. It becomes really hard to transport and to trade other things, but Bitcoin doesn't have any of those problems. Sure, if you know your seed phrase, you can literally leave the fucking country, go to a different country, set up an account over there, hook your shit up to it, and fucking bring it in and convert it to a different currency if you want to, or just hold on to it and spend it as you need to. So I will agree that there's still vulnerabilities, but it's the most likely path for being able to preserve one's wealth right now in existence anywhere because of all these reasons, because of the game theory behind it, because of the competitiveness of countries, because of the competitiveness of corporations. And again, you have this set schedule where the rate of inflation is cut in half every 4 years, which is also incredibly beneficial. It's not deflationary because you don't want it to be deflationary. You want to have a little bit of inflation in order to encourage production, but this is literally the best asset I think you can buy if you want insurance. Now, for a period of time, the dollar might outperform it if we have a major economic catastrophe, but again, they're going to print a bunch of fucking dollars to save us, just like they did in 2008, just like they did in 2018, just like they did in March of 2020, just like they're promising to do after the election. It's all about spending, and you need a vessel that can store your wealth, and that's the best one, in my opinion. Bar none, dude. Bar none. Bitcoin's at 61K. Cool. Thanks, 2 a.m. All right. Bitcoin's dropping. Yay. All right. CME Group. All right. Some big stuff here. CME Group, the world's largest futures exchange, is launching a smaller Bitcoin futures contract to attract retail investors. Bitcoin is not dying. Vivek, or one of these guys, Vivek for real, and then Marty Party were talking about how they called it Bitcoin reserves for exchanges, which is just a slightly different way of saying it. It's almost the exact identical metric. Was at an all-time low. It's bullshit. It's an all-time low since they started tracking the Bitcoin reserve metric going back like a couple of years. But in reality, the amount of Bitcoin, the balance on exchange, which is essentially the exact same metric, here's what's interesting. It went up exponentially since creation all the way up until 2020, March 2020. Then something changed. Now it's flatlined. It's not going up anymore. This is very important, and I say it right here. I said this is positive for Bitcoin because there's less Bitcoin on exchanges that are tied to sell orders, which means like let's say you have a sell order at 150 because you know when it gets there you want to sell because that was your price point. You don't have that automatic ready to go sell pressure, which reduces the potential strength of short-term downward pressure, right? So it's good that we don't have as much Bitcoin on exchanges. There's probably a number of reasons we don't. One of the biggest reasons is back over here in 2023, 2022, into 2022, when we had FTX failing, Luna failing, Silvergate failing, all these different companies and Bitcoin-related things, including banks, started to fail, and people said, holy shit, banks might not be safe. Why do I have my Bitcoin on an exchange? And so they learned how to cold storage it. I think that was a reason for a major drop here. And then we have drops that happen when we get near peaks. You can see it over here in 2021-ish, right? As we started to peak, what happened? The amount of Bitcoin on the exchange dropped because the bulls were selling it. As retail was buying it, they were starting to sell and they were taking their money off the exchange. But then there was another big pump, and again, then we had that event occur. I do think it's important to know that A, we're not at the lowest level we've ever seen for Bitcoin on exchanges, but B, we have seen a 5-year sideways trend on the amount of Bitcoin on the exchanges, which again is great because we know the new supply has been halved. We know exchange ETFs are buying the amount of new supply by 2x what is being issued. And we know that there's a lot less Bitcoin on exchanges to be quickly sold. These are all super powerful things for Bitcoin. Marty Party said crypto money flow. Goodbye Ethereum. He's just shitting on Ethereum because Ethereum dominance is dropping along with Binance's, while people are going into Bitcoin and Solana. That is interesting, and it could be notable. Maybe Ethereum is going to suck. Maybe it's not going to do well. There could be a number of reasons for that. I own a little bit. I think I got 100K in Ethereum. Maybe it doesn't pan out. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it underperforms. Very possible. All right. I said here, yeah, this is wild to me. So President Bukele, it says President of Bitcoin country Nayib Bukele says El Salvador is the safest country in the West. Sadly, that's true, and guarantees no one will be arrested, censored, or have their assets seized for exercising free speech. And I said, if you would have told me 5 years ago that El Salvador would be, with Nayib Bukele, would be the beacon of freedom across the world, and that the UK would be locking up people for thought crimes, I would have in no way believed you. But here we are. This shows the fragility of all countries around the world, I think, and how it's important to embrace freedom and Bitcoin. But I thought that was interesting. Also, BlackRock bought 5,261 Bitcoin last week, while only 2,250 were mined. So again, a more than 2x ratio of purchased versus what was newly made available. That's a big deal. C-list, life has vulnerabilities. I'm a multi-corner for BTC's strength. I just prefer sober analysis. Yeah, I do too. And I think that, but I think that you have to say, like, I think personally, there's a 99% success chance for Bitcoin right now as a reserve asset for the world. That's where I'm operating from. And I think that's being pretty straightforward and having, some common sense analysis. Finding Asheville for the 5th straight market close live stream. I'm going to ask you to look at Ginny. Wow, that's not a very nice way of asking. Okay. Silas, do you recommend Faraday cage around hardware wallets in case? Yeah, probably. Yeah, and at fire storage too. I mean, you need to have something. You need to make sure that it can't burn up, or if you have one that burns up, that you have to have a way to be able to recover it. But if you have a way to recover it, then maybe third parties can recover it. So there's a whole bunch of risks that go into it. But yeah, you want to do everything you can to keep people from stealing from you. Albert, the only way how EMPs strong enough could cook tech, nuclear explosions, how probable? Yeah, I don't know, man. Ukraine is in Russia right now, and there seem to be plenty of people that are perfectly okay with that. I would say we're closer to nuclear war than when we've been in a very long time. Nobody seems to care anymore, though. We're kind of complacent with it. But Russia still has 1,150 active nuclear weapons. They have one of them that could literally be dropped over France, and it would incinerate everybody in it, everybody in the country. So I don't know. I think we need to probably dial back aggression around the world and do whatever we can to stabilize it. But I do think that the risk of nuclear is higher than I would like it to be, maybe 1 or 2%. Bitcoin Munger, 46,000 Bitcoin taken off exchanges today, probably nothing. Interesting stat. And then again, this is just showing the inflows that have been occurring. And I would say the inflows have far outweighed the outflows for Bitcoin since the beginning of the year when the ETFs launched. That's what the green stuff is telling me. So, all right. And then we got Mahler saying that Bitcoin can go to $1 million. It can. I don't know if it has to happen this cycle at all, but it can. All right. So that's that. Let me real quickly jump over. We'll talk Tesla, and then I'll get to requests. Breaking, chief strategist at Wells Fargo says stock will embark on a run of gains unseen in 30 years after the Fed cuts rates. I agree with that, and I think that Tesla will be a major benefactor of that. Alex posted news in the last Friday's letter to the FCC. SpaceX said its Starlink direct-to-cell technology, because they have their new Starlink satellites that are going up that will be able to send cellular signal, and they use lasers. will be able to send emergency alerts to all wireless users in cellular dead zones, even if they haven't signed up for satellite-based service, including non-T-Mobile customers. So basically, everywhere on Earth, you'll be able to have emergency alerts go off to people in their cell phones, even if they don't have coverage. Fucking insane. Cool stuff. No other company in the world is doing it. This guy, Elon Musk, is doing it. Pretty important guy. We have NASA's Officer of Inspector of General announced today that its Mobile Launcher 2 project, which was supposed to cost $383 million and delivered in 2023, will now cost $2.7 billion, a 605% increase with that. And yet you have Starship talking about now having 2 towers in Texas to shoot off their Starship rockets from, and probably for a much lower price point. Also here, Sawyer Merritt said the Biden administration has announced, oh yeah, this is the $520 million in grants to build out electric vehicle charging and deploying more than 9,000 EV charging ports. It's just fucking ridiculous. They're so inefficient. It's stupid. I won't play this one. This is just Elon talking about X and how they will abide by laws in different countries around the world, and that they're trying to be as free as they can be, but they do have to abide by laws in foreign countries. So if the UK becomes more totalitarian, then maybe X won't be readily available there without a VPN. It is what it is. And then XAI, Grok already has new features. 2.0 is sick. Image generation prompt suggestions, improved model selector, edit your prompt with long press, select text by long pressing and Grok response, update your X app to get it. I've just got to say, by most metrics, this is already one of the best AIs on the planet, and it just started. It just started. And Elon's saying Grok 3 is going to be the best in the world when it comes out. So you can bet against Elon Musk all you want. I do not do that. I bet on him. Also, Tesla Jan put breaking Queensland biggest battery to double in size after AGL signs virtual contract. The BESS will consist of 140 Tesla Megapack 2XL units and is expected to start operations in 2026. You got to remember, Tesla's energy division has contracts for like megapacks and stuff like that going out like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. So just crazy levels. Crazy levels. All right. I wanted to throw this out because, again, these are risks towards Tesla. They're risks towards Elon Musk, and that's risk towards Tesla. Says the authoritarian leftists are not hiding it. They're targeting every single person who decides not to kneel. Robert F. Kennedy said France just arrested Pavlov Durov, founder and CEO of the encrypted, uncensored Telegram platform. The need to protect free speech has never been more urgent. And then we have Patrick Webb saying, retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman warns Elon Musk that he should be nervous following the arrest of the Telegram CEO. Might have talked about that in the last one, so I'll let that go. One other thing I wanted to show. This is amazing. You guys have probably seen this. If you haven't seen this, look at this. This is Cortex, affectionately named massive graphics GPU sitting at Giga Texas, and just look at how much power is being built here. Look at how many H100s we have from NVIDIA. Did you see how far down that room goes? This is this is going to be the largest AI company in the world in a short period of time, guys. It really is. I hope you realize that. Holmar's catalog said he's a liberal. I think he is a Democrat. Omar is. He's in California. He said, Democrats, did you see how Ford is pushing back their EVs for years and focusing on hybrids? Did you see how Stellantis isn't opening their EV factory? Did you see how General Motors is delaying too? America and the world needs Tesla. Don't be on the wrong side of history. I love that people like this are taking a political stance to try and encourage people to understand what's important. I love that in about 3 weeks here, we're going to see the Starship try and get caught by Mechazilla. You got to realize this platform is the size of Godzilla. It's 30 stories almost high. And this part right here is 20. So it's a pretty big deal. Tesla China extends zero interest rate promotion by 1 month so that they can boost demand. And again, we know they've been very successful with demand, which is great. Elon, this is cool. Elon talking about going back to the moon. I just think, again, there's nobody doing what these guys are doing right now. I want to listen to this for 40 seconds and then we'll get to your guys' stock requests.
The crazy thing is that it's been over half a century since we last went to the moon. You know, I think maybe that's what causes people to be skeptical. Like, how come we can't go to the moon now? It was 66 years from the first controlled powered flight of the Wright brothers in 1903 to landing on the moon in 69. So only 66 years. But, you know, like 50 years have passed since we last went to the moon. But now we're going to go back there, and we're going to go back there soon. The next step, I think, is to build a moon base, like Moonbase Alpha. Make sci-fi real. Remove the fire part of sci-fi.
I fucking love that, man. This guy is so cool. All right, so let me see here. We got a lot of people talking in chat. Let me see here. Cam said, "Hey Jesse, do you think that market downturn can last until we have results of election?" No, it'll go up before that. Since rate cuts are heavily priced in, no, I don't even know how you could say that they're. I mean, you kind of have to ignore some of the heavily priced in rate cut stuff. Just because they show that there's a lot of rate cuts coming doesn't mean it's heavily priced into the stock market. It just means that that's expectations of what rate cuts are coming. So I would caution that. I would say that it doesn't mean that it's priced into the stock market. Silas, Albert, it depends on where you live. Nuclear generated EMPs are regionalized. True. Master the game. NASDAQ filed for options to trade on BTC ETFs. Any idea on the timeline for that? I don't know off the top of my head. I'll try and figure it out. Master the game. Todd Gleason and Elon replied to say he's giving away Starlink emergency connectivity free for all. That doesn't surprise me. Albert, Russia's nuclear arsenal is also presumed to be mismanaged as most tech and silos are from the 70s. Yeah, no, you could say that. You could totally say that. But if you have, I don't know, 1,050 active nuclear weapons and you have about 5,000 to 6,000 that are on standby, even if 10% of those work, you can wipe out all of Europe and part of the United States. So, again, I hear what you're saying, but we need to find a resolution to what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. It's been in over a year and a half. There's been virtually no headway made outside of Ukraine, I think, trying to find some chips for when Trump gets elected to be able to make it to where they could have some bargaining and saying, hey, we'll give you back Russia if you give us back parts of Ukraine. But I think that we need to find an end to the war. China is the biggest threat. Silas, U.S. air defense and its contagious 48 is mostly fighter jet based. They never felt tons of SAMs were needed. Yep. Finding Asheville. You're right. That wasn't very nice. I'll block myself. Don't do that, Finding Asheville. Guillermo D. Nano. BTC at 60K. Holy shit. Oh, did it drop even more? Cool. Silas, China. Albert, Silas, nuclear deployments and silos reactivations are very obvious and easily observable. Yeah, and you don't need so much a reactivation. You could just have nuclear war, and you don't want that, right? You don't want you don't want like literally. Let's put it this way: if Ukraine keeps pushing forward, and we don't like right now, the Ukrainian government is asking again for the ability to be able to take long-range weaponry and jets and things that we have provided and use them to attack any target in Russia. Is that advisable? Do we think that's a good idea? What happens if Ukraine starts to win the war? What happens if Vladimir Putin feels like his life is over? He's got nuclear bases that he can go into and live out the remainder of his days. If he thinks his life is in jeopardy and he has the ability to press a fucking button and have nuclear bombs deployed, I think we're kind of fucked. And I don't think we should allow that to happen. And so I think it's very important that we try and find some way to de-escalate in China or in Russia, because we want these two to come to terms. We want that to be over. We don't want to spend all of our fucking money defending Ukraine either. That doesn't make any fucking sense. That's not helping our GDP whatsoever. So there's a lot of things I think we need to do if we're going to be intelligent and also not risk World War III. Nuclear deployments and silos reactivations are, finding Asheville, BTC holding 20 and still in box will do fine. C-list, CCP at least. SK, your thoughts, please, on the fundamentals of OSS, another stock recommended by Rex Finance, up 25% today. Yeah, if he recommended it, it pumps. He picks these small ones, so they go up a lot. So I wouldn't buy any today or tomorrow if he recommended it, because a lot of it will probably deflate. But I'll take a look. C-list, Albert, I agree. It's the submarines that are most stealthy. Yes, and there's plenty of those too. Chris Federal, blah, 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 liquidated in the last 60 minutes. How much? 110 million? All right, cool. Yeah, again, it's one of those things where if you use leverage margin, if you're like levered 2-3x or something, or levered 50x like a fucking psycho in the crypto and Bitcoin world, you'll have your money taken from you. Albert, well, yes, but silos and Arsenal is currently dormant, and I meant that it has been on at least standby in order for press the button to work, and on standby would most likely be an ultimate deterrent. Yeah, I just worry. I just worry that nobody is worried about these things. It seems like probably one of our most probable ways of destroying ourselves is a nuclear arsenal, especially with opponents like Russia and China. And China's building theirs up. China barely had one. Now I think, what are they up to? 700 nukes now? I don't even know. But we need to do things to de-escalate world tensions in every way we can. We want to isolate China, and we want to keep Russia from getting too close to them. Anyway, my 2 cents. Let's get to it. John says, hey Jesse, can you possibly look at TMF as a possible long-term option? TX for all you do, John, or thanks for all you do. Okay. I mean, TMF is the multiple for TLT. It could bounce and do really well. TLT is probably the safer bet, and it's going to be the one that you probably want to look at from a technical level, since the other one is going to have things like rebalancing and like a theta type decay. So if you wanted to be really safe, I would say TLT would be a good bet. It actually has 84% to go to its all-time high, and it's already bounced a lot. TLT, this is the 20-year bond, bounced a lot from its bottom. It bounced 18%, actually up to 20% off its bottom. So you could do TMF, and that's just going to be a multiplier of this, right? But again, it could just tread sideways for a while, even if TLT starts to go up, because it's a 3x multiplier. And there's daily balancing that goes with that. So TMF is a good one if you wanted to gather some cash for a day, maybe a couple of days, and it's just really rocketed up. Or I should say TMF's gotten beat up, and you had other things that have done really well, and you just want to hold cash for maybe a week or even just a day, then maybe TMF is a good move because of that multiplier. But the rebalancing will eat away some of the gains. So if you really wanted to be safe and treat it like cash, TLT might be a better option. All right, let's see what else we got. Hey, Jesse, do you know anything about DEFT F, DeFi Technologies? Seems like they package baskets of altcoins into an exchange-traded product. I mean, I don't love that. There's only a few altcoins I would really hold, Solana being a primary one, maybe a few others. I just don't know if that's the right play right now. There's so much going on in the world. I think there's so many other things you could speculate it in that aren't shit. I think altcoins end up being kind of like one of the last blow-off top things. And who knows if they'll perform as well as they have historically. I don't know. I just don't know how quickly the ball drops and stops come 2025 into 2026. So I don't know. Man. I don't know if I like that or not. Let me know if there's any reason that I would want to buy something like that versus like just holding an altcoin portfolio. Justin, if BTC doesn't have market makers like the traditional market, it does. I mean, exchanges operate, and then you have dark pools. It basically does have market makers like a traditional stock market. But you said, and companies like BlackRock don't hold enough to affect the price. They don't hold enough to easily affect the price for any period of time. So like they can't easily suppress the price for a year or 6 months or something like that. They can still have impact over the short term. But again, they're BlackRock's holdings, unlike the stock market, where you invest in a company and then all of a sudden BlackRock has 10% controlling share over what the board can decide going forward. You don't have that in Bitcoin. You just have the ability to buy and sell. And the buying and selling is done for the most part by the people that are invested in the funds, not BlackRock. So it's different. But you said, how does BTC's price react to market news events like RFK backing Trump? It acts right away. It did that right away. On Friday when he backed Trump, it went up right away. Now people could sell Bitcoin for other reasons, but it got to 65,000 over the weekend, man. It was very effective because it moves quickly on news. Dennis, and it's liquid. It's more liquid than anything, really. Dennis Nuber, AMD. Okay. Yeah, nuclear war is a major risk. There's a lot of things that need to be figured out in regard to nuclear war. We shouldn't be, and again, so at the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the insane part is nobody would have imagined giving Ukraine jets. Nobody would have imagined Ukraine going into Russian territory. None of these things were feasible. They were all red lines where we thought we would see the World War III. We've done all those things now, and we continue to see escalation, which is my fear, right? AMD looking good. I mean, AMD looks, I don't know, looks like it's found some bounce, and could go higher. The problem, I don't know, what does AMD look like though as far as market? 243 billion market cap. Let me just look. I don't look at these enough. Let me just see here. Where the heck? Where's visualstocks.com? I gotta find my shit. Oh, there we go. Let's look at AMD real quickly here. I just want to see how they're doing versus NVIDIA. I mean, they're not nearly the same. Revenue growth flat. Revenue growth 9% year over year. Profit growth up a lot, but that's because they just started making some money again. The PE, forward PE is 44. I don't know. This doesn't look like super exciting to me, but it could bounce from a technical standpoint. Maybe we get to 176 again. Maybe we test the all-time high. It does look like it's finding a bottom off of previous resistance over here. And again, it found it right here. So it's finding it under all the peak volume. And if markets go up, this thing could go higher. But this isn't a good asymmetric bet to me right now. And if I was going to have anything, I'd probably have the premium, the NVIDIA, unless you know something about AMD and why all of a sudden they're going to surpass. And I was optimistic about AMD in the past, and I made a little bit of money off of it. But again, after doing deep research, it just doesn't seem like the software is there for AMD, nor the hardware. They just don't have Blackwell or anything close to it. It doesn't seem like AI was something they were focused on. Albert, hey Jesse, what do you think about NVIDIA earnings importance at this point? AI narrative I think it's going to be strong. I think I answered that one earlier. I think NVIDIA is going to beat, and I think that we're going to see the market rally tomorrow, and we'll find out during the market recap because that's what we're going to be looking at. Andrew, Kava, Jesse, I have a friend telling me this is the next Chipotle. Well, it's a pretty different industry. Kava. Oof, okay. This is a weird one. Let's see here. This is 13.47 billion, and it looks like they've got some net income growth. This is a weird one though because of when they started. It's only been around since June of 2023, so I can't really, from a charting perspective, it is not easy to chart out like a trend-based fib extension or anything like that. So let's just look at the financials for them. All right. We're seeing revenue growth, 35% year over year. That's a beautiful number. What's the yearly look like? Well, I mean, they were better in 2020. So they got hurt by the pandemic. Deeply red there. The PE is 400. The forward PE is 400. 400. What the fuck? And insiders have been selling at 2-to-1 rates in Q2 of 2023. The only time I have tracking on that. Guidance is higher. This is just a stupid fucking... What is going to warrant a forward PE of 400? All of these metrics. Yeah, I don't know, dude. This is in the restaurant industry. What do these guys fucking do? Cava, founded in 2006, headquartered in Washington, D.C., specializes in Mediterranean cuisine, offering a variety of salads and dips. So we're in the food industry, and the forward PE is 400. I don't fucking care. I would not touch the stock. Your friend can call it Chipotle all he wants. Let's look at Chipotle. Let's see how they're doing. Do they go for a 400 forward PE? 49. Okay, so this other one is 9x higher. Even though this one has strong growth, predictable growth, well-run company, positive cash flows. Dude, I would not. That's such an expensive stock. I would not touch that with a 10-foot pole, personally. Andrew? Albert, and by board, I mean they have already became the biggest company on earth by market cap. The narrative has been fulfilled, and markets feel like and search something new. I don't know what we're talking about there, if that's in Google, somebody else. Needs 55, the Trump train is rolling, and everyone wants to be on board. Zuck. Yeah. Do you think this is why he is now admitting to censoring for COVID? I think, I don't know. I don't know Zuck. Zuck seems like a very different person than he was a couple of years ago. So I don't know. He could be genuinely remorseful about the position he's taken. He said he's not contributing to any political campaign this time around. And he sent a letter that was pretty scathing towards the Democratic Party for censorship. So I don't know if that's real or if he's just hedging his bets because he knows that if Trump gets elected, it might suck for him. Either way, though, I think it's a positive move, and it's probably a good thing. Kava is not a consistent between restaurants and quality as CMG. Yeah, dude, that just seems crazily valued. Bitcoin is now under 60K. Yay. Cool. Let's see here. Needs. All right, let me see. Scrolling down, trying to get caught up. I think from the time you start. Oh no, that was earlier. Let me see what else I got for requests. Already talked about CleanSpark quite a bit. Hey Jesse, Matthew says, hey Jesse, what are your thoughts on buying leveraged ETFs? I have a position on a 3x MicroStrategy and a 3x Coinbase. Do you think DCA is the best strategy to continue buying into them? Now, I don't know what you're using for these 3x strategies, if these are options or if they're just funds you're invested in. You just have to realize that if they have really powerful, strong moves where it's done stupid well, like let's say MicroStrategy is doubled in a short period of time, and you've gotten a 3x off of that, you might want to deleverage yourself and get into the underlying asset because of the way that they're time balanced with the rebalancing. It strips away their value every night, and you get a slightly lower return. So these are things that aren't meant to be held for long periods of time. So if you do really well off of these, I would sell out, and I would convert into the underlying asset. And then if the underlying asset gets hit and you think there's going to be another massive boom in the future, then you sell the stock and then buy into this 3x leverage play. You could do stuff like that. So yeah, could you DCA into that? Sure. But if we get a big pop in MicroStrategy, get a big pop in Coinbase, and you've made 300% or something by the end of the year, get the fuck out and DCA into the underlying would be my take. Because again, they're time-based, and so it erodes just like options. It erodes, and so you want to take really massive upside moves, and you want to sell into that. L says, happy Tuesday. What do you use to track global liquidity? Thanks. There's a bunch of metrics. I use Michael Howell for part of that, and I'm going to start showing those again at least one time. I'll probably do it, probably not tomorrow, but Thursday or Friday, I'll show you some of the findings from Michael Howell, and he does a weekly report, so I'll probably show you some of that stuff. just weekly. I don't want to do it all the time, and he publishes, I think, weekly with a lot of it. So we'll look at that. There's other ways you can look too, like Marty Party's got a metric, a formula for it. Lynn Alden has a separate formula for it. There's nuance, but a lot of them show you the same thing. Dr. Gonzo, I'd be careful with them. Matthew would not hold them for long. Yeah. Dr. Gonzo's saying the same thing, basically, that these 3x funds, you get this rebalancing that strips away your return and that you underperform over longer periods of time, which is why you don't want to hold them for a long period of time. You want to use really strong movements to exit out of them. And then you buy them when a stock is really depressed, like when MicroStrategy was down 50% off its recent highs. That would be a good time to dial into these 3x plays. And then if you, again, get a 3x, you get the fuck out. All right, Matthew. Yeah, my plan is hopefully they double so that I can make cost basis and let the rest ride. Yeah, and again, but again, letting the rest ride thing, think twice about that. You might want to do that with the underlying. If it starts to outperform, you're going to want to dial out of this thing because it's got that theta decay. Alex Garcia, I had $0 to my name in 2020, so I couldn't buy any Bitcoin back then. Well, that's not good. Glad you're doing better now, sir. Dan24 up. Jesse, once you reach your limit for 10 Tesla referrals, can you post one of ours? I already said earlier kind of why that hasn't worked in the past, but I'll try. Daniel King, thanks for keeping us focused on the right things, Jesse. Tony says, Nguyen says, can you look at Airbnb? Sure. Let me save Kava real quick. Then pull up Airbnb. Airbnb, still looking rough. I know it dropped hard after earnings. And boy, you can kind of see, look at this. You're at the 200 moving average. You got an earnings that's coming up. You're falling into it. Just a catastrophic drop. Look at this. So from the 200, it was at 145.22, and then look at it. It went all the way down to 111. So pretty big drop as we missed earnings here. And let's just look at it from the financial side. Let me actually dial back here. And I don't know if Airbnb is going to be a good, I don't know. If the economy really takes off, maybe it becomes a better bet. I think there's just so much competition. You know what Airbnb reminds me of right now, guys? It reminds me of Bitcoin mining in 2017 when I got into it. It was a very exciting time, and I ran the math, and I was like, shit, I can buy these, and I can just make so much money. You know what I didn't think about? How many other people were doing the same thing. That's what I get reminded of right now when it comes to Airbnb. It reminds me of so many people that are trying to do the same thing and make money off of Airbnb, and they've been buying up all this real estate, and then they rent these places out, and then they were doing really good, but the profits for them a year ago were in some metros were twice of what they are now. So if anything, I can see some downside pressure as a lot of people have gotten to this game. And you could see again a little bit of slowdown and maybe some travel from people in the broader economy while we were firing off the money printer. And so if there's any kind of weakness, I just don't know how well Airbnb does. And let's look at their financials and see how far they're falling here, just at a glance. And this is one where I want to start doing their earnings because I'm fascinated by it. So gross bookings have done all right. Right? If we look at gross bookings, let's look at yearly. So since 2020, gosh, they've done well. They got crushed by 2020. They've went up. Nights and experiences booked going up. International Airbnb is doing better, it looks like, than domestic as far as rate of growth. Or at least they did for a while. Q3 of 2023, they had an explosion. Cash flow's looking okay. The problem with this business is it's barely profitable. I shouldn't say barely. $555 million is not barely profitable. The forward PE, like the current PE is 16, but the forward is 27. So it's getting worse because profits started to drop. Let's look here. Institutional ownership was increasing and then it's stabilized. Short interest is very low. It's not like this company is going to fail by any means, so none of that matters. No real selling from shareholders. I mean, outside of maybe Q2 of 2023, there's like a 2-to-1 ratio on it. And again, we're seeing a little bit of growth, but arguably not a lot of growth. And then we're expecting, EPS to maybe even start to taper off heading into the latter part of the year. I don't know. I just think Airbnb is weaker. It's weaker as a company, and I don't know if it gets a lot better with rates coming down over the short term. I mean, will that increase the number of people that are booking? Will that help with profits? Or are they going to have to take margins lower just to try and make it to where their base of renters isn't just falling apart? Like take some of their profits that they're getting out of this to help some of them survive. I don't know. It could just be weird. It could be weird for Airbnb. That's my take. And it has a high market cap. Yeah, 75 billion is a lot. And I just don't know that it gets a lot better. I don't know that I love it. All right, Ralph says, can you look at Celsius? Yes, I can. Boy, this is another one that got absolutely butchered. It wants to hang on to the .618. It's also right above the 200 moving average. One would think that after a drop from 100, a 60% drop, actually almost 64% drop from its recent highs, double top in May, would be enough of a drop. It reached almost oversold conditions on the weekly time frame. I feel like this is it, and this thing should go up from here. But it's really, again, what you're doing, the fundamentals of your company, I should say the financials and the fundamentals of your company, along with the macro world around you, are going to be important. Are people kind of burn out with Celsius? I mean, the revenue growth for the last 4 quarters hasn't been great. They got a high cash position, sitting on $1 billion in cash. Not a lot of share dilution. Net income, $80 million. North American revenue kind of topped, but international is increasing. Forward PE is 44, though. One could argue that for a company that sells drinking product, that 44 is a really high PE, and that this thing could drop further. So I don't love Celsius, man. There's a reason I never bought this. And I wonder how many people that bought Celsius, like all the time to drink, were also stockholders. And I wonder how bitter the taste of Celsius is in their mouth right now. So I don't know. Honestly, if we can't bounce here, I'd be worried. If we can't bounce and we start to drop underneath of this and we touch this 200 moving average again, then really the next major area of support is 22. And you could argue at 22 that it's more fairly valued than it is today. It definitely is better off now than when it was. Like, it's only up 200% now from its low in May of 2022, whereas before it was up over 600%. And I think I was telling people that this was a double top and to get the fuck out. And I hope people listen to me. Airbnb's high market. Yeah, Jesse, Celsius after the strong pullback. Yeah, I just don't know, Ralph. I worry that it might not be done. One would hope that after a 64% drop, it would be. But I don't know, man. I don't know. All right, let's keep going. Marty, thank you, Jess, for your generous and sharing your time. Yeah, you're welcome, dude. If you guys could hit the like, too, it's appreciated. Start a Patreon. I already answered that one. All right, now, and I kind of talked, hopefully, Kobe, hopefully I answered your questions as best as I could. BTC just took all the liquidity at 58K. Wow, cool. Awesome. That's good. I think a good drop in Bitcoin is probably not a bad thing at all. So let's see where we're at. We'll just jump to it real quick, and then we'll get back to stock requests. All right. Oh, it's at 59. Okay, but yeah, steep drop, 6%. Woof, what a day. What a day. Could it go lower? Maybe. Here's the thing, though. I don't think it closes much lower. So, yeah, I don't know. It can keep dropping, but I don't think it's going to close much lower. All right, let me get back to where I was. We need some micro swag, Jesse. I do need to do something like that. I will, I promise. I'll try and get something with swag. All right, there's Clean Spark. What else we got? BTC coiled. Coiled. Well, it's coiled even more now, Brian. All right, let's see here. What else we got? All All right, I'm looking for stock requests. Getting further down the list. Here we go. John Frank, SMLR and BAX. Let me get to that. And thank you for the $5 tip. All right. Let's start with SMLR. I don't have it. Let me add it. And if you guys have extra details too about your requests, like I really like it because they're going through this or whatever you're doing, it is very helpful. So if you can give me a little backstory, because I don't know everything. So Similar Scientific, woof, it looks like something that is a steal. Is it a steal? It looks like, wow, it's all over the place though. Just really wild. Let me see. I'm going to switch to the monthly chart even on this thing, just so I can get more history here. Okay. Wow. So sitting on peak volumes, but boy, one could almost say at a glance, dude, at a glance, without understanding this company, one could almost say that this is a bear flag. It doesn't have to be. The fundamentals and the financials are really going to matter for this. Let me just pull them up over here. But yeah, this is weird. All right. Is it really already 5:30? Is that true? How long have I been doing this? All right. Wow, today was a long one. To anybody who's here, amazing. Still. Similar, Scientific. All right. Negative 22% revenue growth year over year. It's got a forward PE of 40 and had a massive cash pile drop. Massive free cash flow losses for some reason this last time. Only made 14 million in revenue. This last in Q2 of 2024, it looks like they didn't have a net income if this is showing correctly. This is $205 million market cap, 192 million enterprise value. Lots of retail actually in it. What is the short interest on this thing? 13%. This is in California. Is copying MicroStrategy. Oh, that's why they went up so much. Gotcha. So they're just a fucked company, though. See, when MicroStrategy did it, it was cool. And then the effort that he's put into it, he, being Michael Saylor, brilliant. But when did these guys, do you know when they started to copy it? Do you know at all, John? Was that, and thanks again for the other $5. You don't have to keep tipping. You could just respond in here too. Do you know when they started copying it? Because if it was like back in 2016, no, that would have been too early. Interesting. It's just, there's this massive boom in this stock from $1 to 160. A, how did that happen? B, why did they start to collapse in November 2021? We'll say high rates. We'll say a high rate environment crushed them, right? And then they've started copying the Michael Saylor approach, which probably helped them get up to 51 here recently. But they're not seeing the effectiveness of the Michael Saylor approach. And it looks like they're rolling over. They got 1,000 Bitcoin. Okay, that's good. But is this going to matter for them? It's their actual business that matters. This just reminds me of Kodak turning into a blockchain company in the last cycle, I think it was. But did it help their business? No. I mean, it's good to have a Bitcoin strategy. I think that's probably why their cash has dropped, right? They bought Bitcoin. And their accounting isn't accounting for it. But what is their actual business going to do? It looks like their revenue's in decline. I just don't think this is going to fix the underlying problems with this company, whatever they might be, without knowing who they are. So, I don't know. If your revenue is going to keep declining, it won't help your stock price, even if you hold a lot of Bitcoin. It might help your reserves down the road, and it might help you have more spending power. But if you're still a failing company, and I'm not saying that this company is, but if you are one, or if you're in a company in slow decline, revenue growth year over year of negative 22%, if you're in a slow decline, I don't know though, it doesn't look like that, does it? I mean, they've had a rocky couple of quarters. I just don't understand the fundamentals of this company, so I'm gonna say that I need to understand more about who they actually are, because the revenue growth doesn't look horrible by any means if you dial out into the yearly, and they haven't been diluting stock a lot. If anything, they look like they've recently started doing stock buyback. They had a large cash position. Again, they bought a bunch of Bitcoin, maybe not being counted in here. The thing I don't like is that their operating expenses didn't scale well. But again, they're cash flow positive. It looks like there's mixed signals with this company, and my worry is the technicals of this chart. This just looks like shit to me. This looks like, here's what it looks like to me. It looks like maybe it does something like this, and maybe it takes till the end of 2025. Maybe the stock does okay. Maybe it goes back up to 58. Maybe it goes a little bit higher. Let me read here. The CEO seemed pretty solid. He spoke about the Bitcoin conference. And for Baxter, I like 50 January 2026 calls. You're the best. Thanks for your help. I'll have to look and see if those are any good. If they're a multiple, if those calls give you a multiple of performance, like if you're taking a bet with a small amount of your portfolio, saying that you can get up to 50 up here, could it do that? Yes, it could. I think that's very possible. If the fundamentals just aren't shit. Could it go to 50? Yes, I think it could. And if this is giving you like a 4, 5, 6x return for your calls versus what the underlying is doing, so you make 5 to 600% on this pop, cool. Outside of that, though, I worry that this technical pattern will roll over in the next year or two. It's just, you had this crazy. So with peaks and companies, a lot of the times you'll have this blow off. And this blow off looks like up here when maybe this really skyrocketed from 21 to 48 because they bought Bitcoin. And that blow off in volume sometimes marks the top or the bottom of something. And I don't know when they're going to beat this again. So my worry is it could do exactly what you're saying. And then my worry is that it could roll over. So hopefully that gives you something, man. And I'd have to go deeper into the company and my understanding of it to really be able to say more. Let me, though, pull up Bax next here and see what that looks like. I don't think I have that one. Nope, I don't. So let me find that. And again, thank you for all the tips, man. It's very much appreciated. Hopefully I'm answering your questions to the best of my ability here. Mark LeBlanc, BTC is churning stomachs today. Luckily, we're all used to it, right? I know I am, dude. It doesn't even fucking bother me. It just doesn't. I'm not remotely concerned about what Bitcoin's price action is doing today. All right, Bax, another one. So you're like me. You like to find things that have dropped a lot, and I think that can be a really good bet. This is interesting. So, the setup on this one from a technical standpoint looks better, lots better. Why? Peak volumes, bounce support, double bottom. So this is like a W bottom is what they call it. This is what you want to see. If this was going in the other direction, if we invert this just to look at it through a different lens, I would be scared to buy this asset with all this volume support above it and it rejecting twice off this previous volume peak. So I would not like it as a buy if I invert it. But that's not what it is. Let's look here from the technicals and then we'll look at the fundamentals too. So if I go back here, where is 2020? Where's 2020? This company even have a drop in 2020? What the fuck? It's right over here. Wow. This thing was resilient at the beginning of the pandemic. That's fucking stupid. How little it went down. This is almost hard. You know what? I'm not going to do a trend-based extension because it's just so fucking weird and I don't know where to do it from. I could do it from like no, I don't want to go back that far. What I'm going to do instead, I'm going to do a trend fib-based retracement. I just want to see. It's kind of weird to do it this way, but I'm going to do it. Actually, maybe I'll do it the other way. Let me do it this. Oh, I just did it the same way. God, I'm retarded. All right, let me try this. Okay. So let's just look at it this way for now, just because it's so weird to try and draw it. And this is the monthly, so it's under all moving averages. You've got bullish divergence that started to form on the weekly. Yeah, kinda. And then, arguably, not really there. Let's look at the monthly. See if the monthly has, yeah, the monthly's showing better divergence here. Starts right about here in January 2023. So you had this going down, but then you have a divergence in the RSI trying to pull it higher. So that's looking good. This looks very bounceable, man. It looks like it wants to bounce higher. And I like that from a technical level. I think you could mean revert to 46 pretty easily, which would give you what for a return? Which could give you 20% upside very quickly. And again, it could go even higher. Let's look at the fundamentals on it real quick. SMLR. Oh, wrong one. Bax. All right, Baxter International. Let's see here. Forward PE of 12, existing 7. Super low. Not high growth, but let's see, what do our estimates show us? Slow growth, better EPS. They're buying back stock and have been. That's kind of nice to see how much they sold out a lot in 2018 and 2019, but they're buying back pretty heavy now. I don't think this can be right about institutional ownership. Some of this might not be showing correctly. Doesn't show a lot of short interest. Their operating leverage isn't bad. They're not doing a lot of dilution. They got debt. Their debts are going down. Cash is like bleh. $2 billion in cash. Are these guys doing a Bitcoin treasury thing too, or is there anything special I should know about these guys? Oh, let me see. CEO seem pretty, and for Baxter, I like the 50 January. Oh, so Baxter was the 50 January 2026. I actually think that 50, I don't know what the call looks like for the other one, but that 50 level looked about right. The 50 2026 here. What makes you think it's going to get to 50? Just as like an oscillation to the upside? Is this company going to do well? My worry is the lack of growth. It's one of the reasons why I wouldn't like that other company too. Is just that it doesn't look like it's growing. Yeah, and you can see institutional ownership is huge on this one actually. 12% BlackRock. What do they do? Medical is a global healthcare company with 85 years experience and specializing in critical nutritional and renal, hospital and surgical products that support millions of patients and caregivers daily with a presence in more than 100 countries. So they're large, they're international, and they have slowing growth. 60,000 employees. I don't know, this might be fair. Unless you know why these guys are going to do better in the future, the valuation might be fair. The technical looks good though. The technical, again, like I could see you getting up here to like the 45 to maybe 50 range. So if the calls are really good for Baxter, maybe you get that bounce. Because again, peak volumes down here, and then we're also sitting above peak volumes right here. So we've got a couple of areas that make it look like it wants to go up. From a technical level, I love it. I just don't know from a fundamental level what's going to drive it higher. It doesn't look like it. Again, let me just look here at their estimates. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a lot of growth in the future. So that can keep PEs in the single range for a while, just when you have no growth and the company isn't really going anywhere. People don't value it for a lot more. I hope that answers your questions, man. So both of these look like you could have a pop and make some money. I wouldn't get greedy with them. And I would personally only touch them if the multiplier to the upside is really, really great. All right, let me see here. There's somebody that was complaining about not getting help with some stuff, so I'll try and get them. Kite says GCT and TDW. I'll take a look at them real quick. I'll try and get through all you guys today, and then I am going to bounce. But I'm trying to be helpful here. All right, GTC. Don't have it. Guess I'll save that one. Oh, I didn't do it. God, I'm getting tired. I guess this is a marathon stream today, guys. All right, GTC. Making up for not being here yesterday. G-Tech Group. Is this a British company or is this Giddy Copper? Is this Canadian or is this British, bro? I might need you to tell me. I'll select this one for now. Oof, really low volume. $9 million market cap. Let me know what company that is, dude. I'm gonna move on to something else. If you're still here, let me know. I'll check out TDW. Make a chart out of that because I don't think I have it. Tidewater. I'm gonna assume this is U.S. base. 5 billion, a little larger of a company. Woof. This thing's been around since the 70s. Got utterly destroyed since 2014. All the way down to $4. And then more recently here, what a weird chart. So at the pandemic, it had its low. So I can't draw a trend-based, I can't even draw a trend-based extension because this thing is so fucking weird. Let me do this. I'll do this way. I'll just draw it from the old one. Again, not ideal. No, I can't do it that way. I'll just invert. It's just really weird when you have something like this where you have, yeah, there's just this is impossible to draw from a fib. So I'll just take that out. But why is it going up so much now? From $4 to 110? Oof, this is a weird chart. Let me see what I can look at. Tidewater, oil, gas, and equipment services. Ah, okay. Renowned for owning and operating the industry's largest fleet of offshore support vessels, boasting over 60 years of experience. Ah, so maybe I wonder if they do LNG. Something's helped them. Look at this. Look at the profits. This is interesting. So they got a forward PE of 36, but they're seeing rapid growth since the pandemic, arguably since the war in Russia. They're seeing rapid growth. So I don't know if these guys are benefiting from the war or what, but we can definitely see on the quarterly here a strong increase in positivity with their net income. They're servicing offshore rigs. Is that all they do? Shit, I don't like this. It sucks. So you see like, oh, hey, they're doing good. Institutional ownership's increasing. The short interest is declining, but then you see a bunch of insider selling, massive insider selling. 640, what was this? These are in the thousands of shares. So a shit ton of shares sold. I don't even know what that number is off the top of my head, but it's a lot. All of a sudden here in Q2 and Q1. So I don't think it's a positive sign that they're selling so much. They're selling into strength. So maybe they're worried about what happens in the future. Maybe they should be more worried if Kamala becomes president and she's got her Green New Deal she's pushing for reducing our dependency on oil. So maybe that's why they're selling right now. But I'd say they've got some potential risk in front of them. That's probably why they're doing that. It's awesome that their operating leverage has increased so much versus a pretty stable base. But I just don't know how well these guys do if Kamala's president. If Trump's president, I think they might still do well for a while because we're going to be pushing oil and all kinds of energy. So this is probably very dependent upon who goes into office. I don't know that I can say it's a steal of a deal, but if you had foresight at the pandemic to be able to realize that these guys were going to be able to go from 4 to 110, then you did really, really well. But I don't know. Again, we're hitting long-term resistance levels in 1970 and 1987. So could it go higher? I don't know. It's already ran so fucking much, dude. I can't like encourage anybody to buy it, especially when I don't know the fundamentals behind it. And it's already up over 2,000% since the pandemic. But it's interesting. All right, let me see here. Just heard of them today. Massive growth. All I know for sure. Yeah, but will it last? Will it last? And will Kamala kill it? That would be my question. All right, let me see if I can find this other one here. And if you want your stuff to be picked up, it definitely behooves you to put your requests earlier in the chat so that I don't pass them up. Let me see here. Kava, let me see. I don't want to miss anybody. I just had my chat bounce around on me. Which sucks. But let me see here. Kava, we already did. similar to CG. Kava. Celsius I already did. Airbnb we did. SMLR we did. Sorry, I'm just trying to get through here. Oh, now I know I'm missing that one guy that was complaining that I didn't get his stuff, so I don't know where he is in chat. Let me see if I can find him. Where are you? It was like Ashenville or something. Where the fuck did you... no. I'm trying to find you, dude. If you know who you are. Finding Asheville. Okay, there you are. Finding Asheville. There you are with one of your comments, but where's your other... block myself. All right, you were in here, man. I know you're in here. What was your fucking request? Don't want to miss it. Dude, Ashenville, if you're still here, throw your request out again. I can't find you in the chat. Oh, here we go. I found you. You wanted me to look at Genie and Zavia. Let me see if I can find those. All right, I definitely don't have those. I should just make copies. Genie. All right, let me see here. If you have anything to add as far as details in this, let me know. I'm assuming this is Genius Sports Limited. Oof, that's a crazy fucking chart. All right, so this is probably something that went live around the time every other stock did. October of 2020. Okay, so this is probably early in like the IPO cycle. And then it got utterly destroyed. From 24, all right, so almost a 90% drop. Now it looks like it's stabilizing. That might be something I can draw a trend-based extension, but let's look at it real quick and see what the financials look like too. And if you have any details to add as to why this might be a good company. Revenue looks cyclical, it looks like a little bit. They have been diluting shareholders. They did a lot of that from Q3 of 2023 to Q4. They only have 10% revenue growth. Profit growth is non-existent. Institutional ownership has climbed. Short interest is at 6%. Estimates look good for the next few quarters. I mean, that looks like good growth. They don't have EPS growth, so we're not looking at like net income going a lot. But it does look like a growing company. Even like revenue per employee is looking good. It continues to expand higher. So it looks like they're finding efficiencies. Stock-based comp, I can't even tell what it is because it's so tiny. 18% of their revenue goes to stock-based comp. That is a huge fucking number. And it looks like, worryingly, it looks like revenue is starting to come down and operating expenses are not coming down. I don't know. It doesn't look... Their estimate looks good as far as revenue. The question is, can they make a profit? They're based out of London. Only 2 companies in sports data. Okay. Specializes in developing technology driven by products and services for the sports betting, sports media sectors, focusing on live data and collection, integration and distribution, streaming solutions, and integrity services to combat suspicious betting activities. Additionally, the companies offer a range of services including odds, feeds, risk management, live streaming, digital marketing, and fan engagement. Which of the 2 are the best? All right, so let's look at this one. So I'll draw like I'll do like a trend-based extension. I'll just count it from when they went live, when they peaked, when they troughed. And this is going to look weird. Okay, so it hasn't made its next charge towards the $10 range, but that's like a little bit under $10 is the next move, right? So that's like not a huge increase, maybe a 30% or something, not even from where we're at. So I'll save this, and then I want to pull up the financials and the other one that you're talking about to see what it looks like. Because I want to understand that. So let's look. So this one, so we have this. I'm actually going to probably, yeah, okay. And we could do a comparison between them, but for now I'm just looking at this. So what do we have? 100-ish million in revenue. Let's look at this other company. And the other one, how did you spell it? What was the other one? Zevia or something? Or is it, let me see, ZVIA? Is that right? Zevia PBC? Is that it? Is this the sports betting one? Let me see here. No, this says beverages and alcohol. What was the other stock that you had? I'm trying to find it in my list here. Genie, can you give me more detail on that one? Finding Asheville? The other one that you were looking at. Was it Zedia? Was it this? Or was it another sport betting company? Oh, it was Zedia. Okay. All right. So revenue flat. My wife likes these. I think if I'm thinking of the same thing. Not making any money. Lots of stock dilution in the last couple of years. I mean, not profitable and diluting stock. Two things I hate. They sold out a decent amount, 3-to-1 ratio almost, in 2023. Estimates aren't for a lot of growth and are not for profitability. I just don't like companies like this that aren't profitable. So to me, this is like, I don't know, I wouldn't know how to gauge this. I don't love it just for that reason. I don't love it. The lack of profitability is a no vote from me, man. Mark LeBlanc, 4. Let me take a look at 4. That's actually one. Shift Payments has a pretty interesting CEO. I like him. And I know my friend Tanner has been saying really positive things. You could see a large increase in revenue, 30% year over year. P ratio is 21. This company has done really good. Outside, their debt is a little high compared to cash. There's not a lot of dilution. They've got positive cash flow. What are they netting? 40 million off of revenues of 827. Not a lot of R&D, just general administrative and S&M. That's interesting. But yeah, these guys, just the end-to-end, look at the volume, look at the payment volume growth they've seen. In 2020, at the start of the pandemic, they were at between 5 billion in payment volume, and now they're at 40. So that's awesome growth, man. They've been selling though. Q2 of 2024, these are pretty decent ratios of selling. So as the institutional ownership increases and their company outperforms, they're starting to sell, and they've still got a decent amount of short interest. I don't know how anybody could be short this thing. It sounds like a good way to get your face fucking ripped off. Yeah, this operating leverage looks beautiful for 4. Look at that. I mean, this has been a successfully run company. This is very impressive. And I don't know what they're going to end up doing going forward. It's not populating all the estimate for some reason in here. It looks like even greater EPS, but 4 looks like a pretty good company. I mean, let's look at the technicals in this one real quick. Yeah. Again, outside of the institutional selling, but again, if you've done really well, you kind of deserve the opportunity to sell some, right? What a drop here. So this is almost a W bottom over here in order to be able to go higher. And it's certainly done that. And it looks like it's found a shelf or some support off the .618, and that it could test back up to 90, I think, pretty easily. This is the kind of company where it could test up to all-time highs. I think this range right up here, 103 to 110, is probably pretty likely in my opinion. 4 looks like a great company, dude. All right, so I think I've done this for almost 3 hours. I've done this for 3 hours today. So I think I made up for not being here yesterday. So I'm probably going to call it, guys. For anybody who still made it, the almost 200 people that are here, you guys are fucking troopers. I'm probably going to call it here, though. 3 hours is too much for me, and I got to spend some time with my kid and my wife, and I need to eat. So I'm probably going to call it for the day. Again, I think today is a buy the fucking dip. Let's see how Bitcoin ended up. What's our Bitcoins at right now? 59,411. I think we're already starting to bounce, and I think we'll continue to bounce into tomorrow. That's my take. But otherwise, hey guys, you have a good rest of your night. I hope you have a good time. I'm probably going to play, since Bitcoin's fallen so much, we're just going to play Bitcoin's going to zero. I think that's the way to do it. So, and then tomorrow I will see you guys for NVIDIA. It should be a hell of a time. Otherwise, take it easy. Peace, guys. Love you. Bye.
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto.
Last year, cryptocurrency funded every kind of dangerous criminal.
But I would not touch crypto in a million years.
Bitcoin is going to zero.
If I was the government, I'd close it down.
People are losing money in scams and huckster flim-flam artists.
These people who own these things should not own your money in any of those. I do think you're an idiot, okay?
It's over.
Go fuck yourself.
What do you do?
Go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. What do you do? Why? What do you do? Go fuck yourself. Is that clear?